Well, I'm scheduled on the holiday Wednesday.
Yeah,
And
so
then
that might
it was-
So
Yeah.
true.
And the last week I worked.
So were they
we
talking
like-
about the wet for?
Well, on Wednesdays, if it's every other Wednesday, then I got for Jessica.
Oh.
Because she
What's
does.
your name?
Yeah, she does that every other Wednesday. And then the other one is. Sometimes I do, sometimes it's for her, and sometimes it's, a lot of times, my free schedules. Because we're having elections.
Yeah.
So I don't this room, this room, this room, this room. And then we all run. Yeah.
They're dumping us. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Reed, can you hear us? You can just shake your head if you can hear us. Thanks. No, he's right. So, yeah. This is gorgeous. These the panels. We always try going through this.
There's only two.
Good.
He says it's two. Yeah.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Heidi, are you ready?
Yep.
Stella?
Yep.
Lois? Yes. Yes. Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at this Whitewater Township Board Special Meeting, October 24th, 2022 at 1 p.m. We will call the meeting to order and roll call when ready, please.
Goss, here. Bennett, here. Pop,
Here.
Valmuth, here. Glenn.
Here. Any changes to the meeting agenda this afternoon, excuse me? Any conflicts of interest? And everybody's favorite, public comment. If anybody has a public comment, please make your way to the podium and tell us what you think.
Good afternoon, Linda Slopsma. I wanted to thank Fleece and Vandenbrink for the revised plans. I see that they've moved the boat wash to prior to the guard shack. So I think that will do well as far as protecting Elk Lake from invasive. So I appreciate that. As we get started in the meeting, I would really appreciate it if Fleece and Vandenbrink could give an overview of the new plans for phase one, you know, what they put in, what they took out, because it wasn't immediately obvious to me when I read the documents that were provided for the meeting. Second of all, I would just like to touch base again on the boat wash and, you know, the fact that we've shared a lot of information in the last 3 months here with the board regarding invasive species and what are the most effective ways of dealing with that and the role that trailered boats play in that. We've certainly learned that a water-based wash is much more effective than a dry wash or one that just sprays off air. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware that Elk Skagamog Lake Association is in several discussions with Eagle and the DNR at the state level, and that we're also continuing to work with other lake associations for technical advice and lessons learned on how to have the best possible boat wash. We're also filling out grant applications to try and help with the funding. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that we were working on that on the outside to try and support the initiative. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Jan Garvey. I live just south of Whitewater Township Park. And I am also, as Linda is, active in the Elk Skagamog Lakes Association. And really just kind of want to reiterate what Linda has said, that you know, we're pleased that things are moving forward and that the boat wash will be for incoming boats. And as she said, we've done a lot of research. We've tried to share a lot of information on different types of boat washes and the benefits. And we are trying to gain some expertise in grant writing. Now, we've not done that before. So we're kind of new at it, but thinking, hey, you know, maybe we can help out here and get some additional funding to help with hopefully maybe someday having 2 boat washes at Whitewater Township Park. So let's hope we can keep moving forward with this. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay,
Once you have gone out to Zoom, I have several to read.
I'm sorry.
I have several public comments to read that came in through email.
Oh, please.
Okay. This public comment is from Kim Drury.
Our friends and family have been coming to this park for years. It is my favorite place in the entire state of Michigan. We travel the state every year looking for a new favorite, and I have yet to find one that I feel more comfortable than Whitewater Township Park. It absolutely saddens me to think that there is even a thought that this park would be unavailable to the citizens of this Great Lake state. Elk Lake is truly one of the most beautiful and greatest of lakes to me. I understand that people who live here have a voice, although they have purchased and own the land, but not the lake. Why would anyone be so selfish to say that they don't want to share this beautiful asset that was God-given, given to us all to appreciate and enjoy? The Whitewater Township Park is one of the cleanest, quiet, and most inviting parks around. We look forward to this trip every year as we are campers and boaters. Knowing that our access is threatened is unthinkable. We have supported this park for years and will continue to do so as long as we are allowed. Please reconsider all that has been brought forward by the people who support this project. It's all for the good of the people, we the people. Thank you for your time and consideration. This comment is from Lori Lamine. I am writing in regards to the Whitewater Township Park improvements. It is incomprehensible to me why 3 of the trustees no longer support the project, which is already financially covered. As a very frequent user of the boat launches there for years, the improvements planned have been long overdue. Last summer, the boat launches were so busy over the 4th of July weekend that numerous people almost ended up in fights because the line was so long and people were tired of waiting. There's never enough places to park, and that's even if you're there by 11 a.m. most weekends. I would like to know the exact reasons why these board members are now opposed to this project. It needed to happen at least 5 years ago. No taxpayers will be paying more for this project. It's a win-win for everyone. Where is the common sense? Please see that this project happens. Our area is growing with tourists every year, and it's making it harder and harder to get out and enjoy our lakes. We moved here to enjoy what this area offers. Please ensure we have the access to do so. This comment is from Ludina Benick. I've been a resident of Whitewater Township for 36 years, and it saddens me to say that this is not the first time a good decision has been made for improvement in our community, only to have it reversed by our township board members in whole or in part. It also saddens me to say that this is not the first time I have felt that the board members are not listening to the residents they are supposed to be serving. There have been those times the board has actually asked the residents their thoughts and concerns on certain issues, and despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, have gone ahead and done what they wanted anyway, seemingly without any regard for the thoughts and concerns of the residents. As for the township park, in the years I have lived here, I have rarely taken advantage of the opportunity to enjoy the lakes and streams that God has blessed us with because I have a fear of water. That being said, the few times I have been to the park, I have been so proud that we have such a wonderful facility in our township. Whether it's camping, swimming, boating, picnicking, or just playing in the sand, I have always appreciated that we have such a place where memories can be made with family and friends. While I personally do not take advantage of all the park has to offer, I certainly can acknowledge that the value of our park goes well beyond what can be seen. Not using the funds that are available to repair and improve our park is like a slap in the face to our residents and to all those who contribute to the park through user fees. To even consider closing the park would be tantamount to gouging out the heart of our community. Please save our park, not only for the current generation, but for those to come. Our parks are at the heart of our community. Just as a side note, it would be an encouragement to Whitewater Township residents that the board does actually take into consideration the thoughts and concerns of those they serve. This comment is from Nancy Timmer. Good morning. I'm writing to let you know my opinion about the politics going on surrounding the park and the 3 board members wanting to shut the park down and not go through with the expansion. The 3 board members do not own the lake. What incentives are they getting in order to try to stop this expansion? I think this should be looked into. It's obvious the residents of the lake are behind this, but they have no right to try to stop this expansion. This park is a beautiful asset to your community and the state of Michigan. Please proceed with the expansion and keep the park open. This comment is from Judy Blackmer. To whom it may concern, my family and I have been enjoying this beautiful park and boat launch for 30+ years. It is a great asset to those of us that use it. Our community should be very proud of this facility. As with anything, we must continue to improve it or it will fall into dangerous ill repair. I can't imagine why anyone would want to stop this progress. This is a beautiful park and lake which should be available for use. I don't understand why we would try to limit access. We boat on this lake regularly and it feels like we are the only people on the lake. This lake is not overcrowded or overused. This comment is from Daryl Richards. I'm not sure where the attitude comes from. This is a 45-year resident. I'm not sure where the attitude comes from that a few people can arbitrarily try to shut off access to a state-owned lake just because they don't want boat traffic. You don't own the lake. You only own property up to the edge of the lake. This is a classic, I'm here now and I want to shut everyone else out. This is the most selfish attitude to try to regulate a public lake to limit boat traffic I have seen. I can see in the future a few people being voted off the board. It is a pathetic excuse of supervisory board of abuse for the sole purpose of serving self instead of the people. This is a comment from Janie Kopensky. We have been coming to Whitewater Township Park for years because of the nice boat ramp. We hope that nothing will change it. I asked her in response, do you support improvements to the boat launch to make it easier to launch, retrieve boats and safer? She said, yes, I would. This is a comment from Sally Ruth, to whom it may concern. We have been coming to this park for a few years now and we just love it here. The people are so kind and helpful. The boat ramp is wonderful, easy in and out. It makes coming to this area a great experience. Please don't do anything to the boat. It's great the way it is. I asked her, I'm not sure whether you are for or against improvements to the boat launch. Could you please clarify? She said, I like it just the way it is. This is a comment from Rodney Bridgeforth. I am writing this letter from my campsite at Whitewater Township Park on Labor Day weekend to express my sincere concern over rumors to close this campground. Additionally, I would like to know why a $200,000 matching grant from the Department of Natural Resources in 2019 for the boat launch entryway improvement project was not used to widen and improve the docks and make improvements to the park entrance. The Whitewater Township Park and Campground is like no other spot in northern Michigan. We come to this campground because it is well managed, clean, and cared for. My family and I have been coming here for almost 20 years. In 2022, we were fortunate enough to have a seasonal site and have enjoyed every minute of our time in the park. I have watched firsthand how this park has evolved and could not be more pleased with how it has been run. Dan and Peggy are the faces of a crew of people that make this park operate. They have been instrumental in the park's success and have a true passion for making this a campground we want to return to. It is to my understanding Whitewater Township Park is managed well operationally and financially. I simply do not understand why comments would be made to close the park. My hope is that you take my comments and questions to heart. Campgrounds are a dime a dozen. There are a few very good ones. Whitewater Township is a great park and campground, and I sincerely hope to return here in the future. This comment is from Rita Draper. Our family does not want our access to Elk Lake restricted in any way. Please stop the politics of division and get the job done. This comment is from Pauline Pash. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for sending the informational letter, Whitewater Township Park, Things You Need to Know. We have been wondering about the improvements and when they were going to happen, and this definitely answers those questions. We are very disheartened that there is opposition to the improvements and would very much like to come to the next township board meeting to voice our opinion. Could you please tell us when that will be? We recently moved here and we are so pleased to have such a gem as the Whitewater Township Park not far from our home. It was one of the deciding factors in buying our home up here, and we were very excited about the improvements that were going to be made. Thank you, Cheryl, for your efforts regarding these improvement projects and keeping us informed. This comment is from Matt Tulk. As a resident of Acme Township, but a user of the park for the past 22 years, my family, friends, and business associates have all enjoyed all the assets of the park. We are very interested and happy to see and hear about the proposed improvements that have been outlined for the park. The lake is a public waterway, and any infringement on that would be a mistake that the taxpayers would not look on as a favorable action by those involved in that restriction. The DNR has made their position clear with the matching grant, and with all permits issued, it appears this project should be full steam ahead. Many of us who have enjoyed this park will be watching closely as the project moves ahead. This comment is from Mr. and Mrs. Roland Balsley. Very nice park and facilities. We like it the way it is. As Elk Lake residents, we do not favor or support the proposed improvements. This comment is from Edward Ted Broad. We have been tax-paying homeowners in Whitewater Township since 1993. For nearly 3 decades, we have depended upon the convenient access to Elk Lake provided by our township park, an asset of Whitewater Township worthy of envy by any other township in Michigan. We have been aware of plans to make improvements to the park for the last few years and have wondered why the project has not started. We have recently been informed that since 2019, a contract between the DNR and Whitewater Township was signed to provide funding to make these improvements. Furthermore, after a COVID delay in 2020, in 2021, a public hearing of the board unanimously approved the boat launch entryway improvement project and authority to proceed to final design. Provision of final plans, the project manual, and the issue of permits have long been accomplished. I have further heard that no bids for this project have been requested, and the cost will not be going down in this period of unprecedented inflation. In addition to monies already collecting miserable bank rates, we are not utilizing the reported $200,000 from the DNR, and we have no idea how long the DNR money will be available. Unspent government money has a history of vaporizing. Please hear the voices of your constituents and get this project underway. This is a comment from Brian Wolf. Dear Whitewater Township board members, thank you for your service to the Whitewater Township community. I am a retired teacher who now lives near the southwest shore of Elk Lake on Elk Lake Trail, just a couple blocks north of Whitewater Township Park. I bought the house in 2019. I have enjoyed windsurfing on beautiful Elk Lake since 1990 as an annual visitor camping at Whitewater Township Campground. I now launch my kayaks at the Whitewater Township Park, as well as several other areas on the shore. Throughout the past 30 years, I have been impressed at how well the park has been maintained and run. Cheryl Goss and her dedicated staff do a superb job of managing the many aspects of the park. Dan Bellinger has also done an outstanding job at the park throughout the years. He and the other staff members work tirelessly to provide a high-quality camping and boating experience for thousands of people each year. The staff did a superb job of improving the shoreline area this past year. As a person who uses the lake, I see the need for updated launch facilities at the boat ramp area. As a local resident who lives within earshot of the boat motors, I also don't want the lake to become overrun with too many boats. Therefore, my request is for the township board to do the following. Make sure that the park continues to operate in essentially the same capacity that it has operated these past several decades. Give Mrs. Goss and her dedicated staff the support and cooperation needed to keep the park fully operational. Move forward with making improvements to the launch area, particularly a new pier and underwater concrete ramps. Do whatever is necessary to allow the park to have at least 3 boat launch pads. Take advantage of the $200,000 DNR funds to assist with these upgrades. As a resident who lives close to the lakeshore, I see both advantages and disadvantages in increasing the number of boat trailer parking spots. Therefore, I am neutral on that issue. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. This comment is from Deb Roloffs. I write to urge the board to make the needed improvements to this wonderful asset on Elk Lake. Not only are improvements necessary, they are beneficial to all who live near and use the lake. In addition, please make the area more accessible for canoes and kayaks. Currently, the area has numerous rocks which make entry and exit hazardous. The money is available. No taxpayer money is needed. The lake is a natural resource that belongs to all Michiganders, not to a few wealthy folks fortunate enough to live on the lake. I have not heard one legitimate argument against this worthy project. Managing your resource for all is your obligation. Vote accordingly. This comment is from Kurt Weitengruber. Whitewater Township was awarded a grant from the Michigan DNR to improve the boat launch area at Whitewater Township Park in 2019. The DNR awards these grants for situations where infrastructure enhancements will improve access and recreational opportunities to the residents of the state of Michigan and its visitors. In reviewing minutes from regular and special township minutes and the special hearing on this project on 1/12/2022, the Whitewater Township Board voted in harmony to proceed to the final design, engineering, and permitting on this project. That was a decision made that would indicate that there were no further reasons not to move forward on this project and commence with the needed construction. The facts show that this project is currently funded and will provide no monetary impact to the taxpayers in Whitewater Township. Whitewater Township Park is a valuable asset and should be shared with the public to improve their access and enjoyment of the surrounding waters. The current Whitewater Township Board needs to adhere to the decision that was made back on 1/12/2022, put their current differences aside and move forward on this project. There have been several folks working to obtain grants, meeting with the DNR, engineering firms, etc. They should be commended for their efforts on this project. This comment is from Paul Barrick. To whom it may concern, I visited Whitewater Township Park for the first time this past weekend. I learned some disturbing news that some board members want to close a park that is self-sustaining. I'm not from the area, but would love to come back to this park. Please keep the park open and do the necessary boat launch improvements so that people can keep making memories on Elk Lake. This comment, I think everybody got this comment
Read
from
it
Emily
anyway.
Michelle.
Read it anyway.
Hello, as a resident of the township, I have some concerns and questions directed to our board trustees and officials. Firstly, I wondered why we have had hiking trails sitting closed due to storm damage for so long, and why hasn't it been addressed instead of just printing off some closed signs and letting it sit? If there is a need for assistance with downed trees or something, why hasn't there been a call for volunteers to help to speed up the process? We have so many skilled, helpful residents who would be willing to help with labor and equipment needed to reopen the parks we pay for. Second, why is the playground posted as closed? It's a playground, for goodness sakes. Of course, there is a chance of injury. Our playground is no different than any school you see around, and you don't see schools closing them because someone may have gotten hurt. It's a risk you take when you play. You could hurt yourself in a dirt parking lot or on the baseball fields. Should we close those too? Third, the township residents deserve an explanation for reallocating boat launch park funds to the general funds. If you cannot provide a reasonable explanation, these funds need to be put in their rightful place immediately. Our boat launch is not meant to be a way for the township to collect profits for unrelated business. The park has raised this money by people who actually use the park, and those people would be happy to see their money go back into much needed improvements instead of disappearing into the township abyss. Lake access is hugely important for residents, and this park should be a top priority, as it is obviously, based on business and profit generated, the most used place in the township. I am disturbed by the juvenile attitudes and lack of accountability running rampant in this township. The times we have been in the news are frankly embarrassing. All our parks need to be reopened and improved, and it should be a top concern for not only the Parks Department, but the entire township. It feels like my taxpayer money is going towards nothing but your salaries while you refuse to work as a team and prefer to drag feet and get litigation involved whenever possible. We have such beautiful resources to enjoy, improve, and protect. Help your residents get there. Please address each of these concerns in a timely manner. This comment is from Renata Wilson. I am very concerned that a few people can decide where money can be diverted to in this township. I do not believe the parks money should be used for anything other than what it was intended for. I am under the understanding that the park is a separate entity and supports itself through camping and launch fees. We need a new boat launch and improvements. Why do these people think they can do this? I, for one, do not agree and believe this needs to be stopped. How many other things are going on that we don't know about? This comment is from Kurt and Bobby Joe Whitefield. We love camping at Whitewater Township Park. We discovered it because most camping parks in the area do not allow tent camping. Because we love it up there so much, we bought property near Elk Lake in Williamsburg to build our retirement home. We enjoy camping at Whitewater, and that won't ever change. We talk about its beautiful camping sites, amazing rangers and staff working to make and keep it beautiful. Without the park, we would not have found our love for the area and made such plans to retire in Williamsburg. Our family brings more family and friends with us each year, and we financially contribute to the entire Williamsburg and Elk Rapids community businesses. We don't want this to stop, but fear that our initial purpose of discovering Whitewater Township Park will have a dramatic impact on our time spent there.
Beth. We're residents on Palestrom Road in Whitewater Township. We did family camping trips up here every year when my husband was in the service. So every year we would come at 4th of July and camp with my family. In 2010, we purchased our home off of Palestrom and have loved it. But the ramp is, and we launch every year. The last 2 years, we've avoided Whitewater Township because with COVID, it just got out of control. So we saw that they were doing the boat, project, and we're super excited. My biggest concern is it sounded like these were grant funds. If they're grant funds, they were applied for a specific purpose. If they're meant for a specific purpose and they're not going to be used for that, they need to be given back, or I would consider that fraud. So there's a specific reason for grant funds. So I don't understand how they can be used for something else if they were applied for and approved for a specific purpose. But those are my main concerns.
Thank you. And welcome to your first meeting.
No public comments. My name is also Beth. And if indeed some of you want to close Whitewater Township Park, I just want to know why. And if you don't want to spend the launch, improve the launch, because I think the launch needs improving. I don't use the launch. I'm not a boater, but I do use the park, and it's a nice place to be. So I just want to know the why behind, if that's what's actually happening. Thank you.
Tell she's a teacher, she didn't need to get close to this here. Mark Williams, Whitewater Township. Does anybody know how many letters Cheryl just read? How many emails? Well, it sounded to me like they ran 98% pro the improvements. And it looks like it's a lot easier to send an email than it is to talk in public. So to those letters that support the improvements, I say ditto.
Anyone else? All right, we will go out to Zoom. And anyone wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand. Hello, Melissa.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Wow, is all I have to say about those comments. It is very apparent by the comments that we heard today so far, as well as the highly usage of the campgrounds and boat launch that we've experienced, and especially with the insight of a pandemic and a safe place for people to be in the public who can still maintain safe distances. I'm sure the boat launch usage increased dramatically. So please take the usage into consideration of why this expansion is greatly needed. The numbers at peak times, which typically are early morning for the fishermen, of course, but then later morning, the fishermen are trying to return. The general public, for the day boaters, are trying to launch, so it gets extremely congested. And then again, late afternoon, before dinner time, all of the day boaters, there's a huge surge of boaters coming in. And then, of course, you have the fishermen who are trying to launch. So it's extremely obvious that this expansion is overdue to maintain a safe and sustainable launch site. The length of these docks are also a great concern for the larger boaters. And I would definitely say that that should be taken into consideration for that allowance. I am extremely concerned that there was a very quick, unresearched, and potentially very dangerous agreement by the board to remove 85% of the park funds that were, by the way, 100% generated from campers and boater revenues to put into the general funds. Once it is in the general funds, it becomes intermingled with taxpayer revenues and expenses, and can then be redirected to whatever the board feels like, instead of going back into the park for upgrades and much needed maintenance. The time frame of this project and the $200,000 grant, which many people have expressed concern of, is set to expire if this project is not completed by the end of 2023. The time frame of this, it is paramount that you get started now. In fact, it should be in process. It should be under construction right now, given the delays you're going to see in the springtime, and with not closing down the entire boat launch for an entire summer. It's going to be an incredible feat. So these delays cannot continue by the board. It's unacceptable, and I urge you to get this done. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vicky. I see your hand up.
Good afternoon. As always, thank you so much for taking the time and listening to all of our comments. I echo that I'm happy to see things are being reviewed. I feel with a project of this magnitude that it's important to get all of the township resident input. Grants were mentioned quite a bit, and a lot of us have indicated our interest in being able to help. So similar to the comment being made about taking advantage of volunteers to cut down trees, maybe the same thing with grant writing. This project obviously needs a project manager, and I'm also very interested in hearing how the board will be monitoring the progress of this report. Comments that are made about the board and this park being closed. I've been attending so many meetings and I have not heard that. I don't understand where that's coming from. What I've heard is that you're just not willy-nilly saying to go forward and not really having a true picture of what the cost is. There's so many unknowns, and to be better prepared would be much better than having a project started and then find out that we don't have the money to finish it. That would be even worse than not doing anything. So please take the time. I have never heard Ron, Don, or Heidi say that they don't support the boat launch. I just feel that, in my opinion, they're being thoughtful and fiduciarily responsible. I have never, again, heard anybody say that you want to shut the park down. The money has been there, that's been mentioned since 19. I realize COVID was in play, but again, money was there and nothing really happened. And I think it goes back to not having a boat manager. I too want to echo one of the comments that were made, that everybody needs to start working together. And I too can see a few people being voted off this board when the time comes. I really encourage you to be fiduciarily responsible. We all want to enjoy the parks. We all want to enjoy the water. And let's not do it in such a way that we cannot afford it. Thank you for your time.
That's all I see with hands up. Okay. All right. Did I miss one? Oh. Hello, Connie.
Hi, sorry, I was away from my home and just ran in the door. Thank you for your time and listening to comments. I just want to quickly say, I think that most people are in agreement that maintenance and upgrades are necessary in most of the parks. I think that the ramp, from what others have told me, that the ramp there at the campgrounds is dangerous because of the shifting concrete. So, I certainly can see a longer dock and maintenance and new concrete in that area. I think that there's so many things in that park that could use the maintenance, along with the restrooms and so on. It's a shame that certain board members and township employees take the time to make comments on social media that are mistruths. And they say those things about board members and residents and property owners. And those are the same people that are making comments that they want the board to work as a team. So I say, do as you ask of others, work as a team. It's a very important project. And I think that together, lots of good things could be accomplished. Thanks for your time.
Hello, Tom. Hello, Tom, you have your hand up. Maybe unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm not very well prepared because much of what I had to say is coming, the same comments that Vicky had just made. I couldn't say them better. But I can appreciate all the comments that Cheryl read. But the bottom line, when I listen to all that, is I hear rumors about the park being closed. I'm very active in participating down at the park, and I've not ever heard that rumor. There is no plan to close the park. I think what we're looking at is a process. And what a shame that 3 board members are being called out numerous times, whether it be in person, social media, whatever, and things get posted up on bulletin boards with the letter from Cheryl, the yellow flyer that ended up on people's cars. And it has a lot of scare tactics in it and a lot of misinformation. Therefore, our community is very confused. Everybody should be working together. Everybody should be heard. And I do not believe that Ron, Don, and Heidi are trying to close the park. I think they're looking at a plan and to do it right the first time without wasting money or time. So all the residents that are in fear of the park being closed, I think that needs to be addressed. And I don't believe that they are trying to restrict boater access. So please, for the good of the people, make sure that correct information is going out to the public. And this is a huge project. It needs to have a project manager with checks and balances to make sure the process is being done properly. So thank you for your time. And those are my comments. Other than the bathrooms down at the park, there needs to be a plan for what's going to happen with that. Nobody wants to spend a day at the beach and not have good bathroom facilities. Thank you for your time.
All right. Anyone else in Zoom land? Don't see any more hands up. So we will move on to the business portion of our meeting. And I think I see Andrew and I think I see Rick potentially online. Is that correct, Andrew, or is it just you?
No, we are both here, Ron, Rick, and Andrew.
Great. Wonderful. So we had a request to see what was actually changed between the, I'm going to say the April 29th drawing and the August maybe 22nd revision or September 22nd. I'm not sure that those are the correct dates, but if that's something you could accomplish briefly.
Well, we can, let me just give you a quick summary of what was changed based on discussions with the people at the Waterways Grant Agency. What we proposed to them was, I guess, a couple of things to try to, again, really try to, I don't want to say scale down the scope, but that's in fact what we've tried to do is in order to put this project probably with a bigger financial cushion, if you will, due to COVID and some other rising costs of constructions. The ramp itself was initially was programmed to be 4 bays wide, which each bay consists of a 4 foot wide by 18-foot plank. That has been reduced to a 3-bay launch. So a 25% reduction in the amount of piers underwater. And we're programming, and back to some of the initial comments, the program from day one was to include that the planks themselves go an additional 8 feet out into the water, and also the docks are expanded an additional 8 feet in length to accommodate larger boats. Other changes from the original plan based on discussion with Waterways was the original gravel parking lot that would only go in as a phase 1 as a grassed area of the same size, which could be in the future if it ever wanted to go either a gravel or paved could be done, but under this phase would be just a grassed area for additional overflow trailer parking. And the other change was mentioned earlier too, was moving the boat wash facility to just west on Park Road to the open area that currently exists right now. Those were the 3 changes that we reviewed with the Waterways Department that were part of the original scope grant. But, you know, I also would like to remind people that this project was part of a larger master plan for the park. Obviously, there is a lot more work that could be done in other areas of the park as well. Things like the restroom and day use, beach, playground, some additional maybe renovation or expansion of a pavilion. Those were all talked as part of a larger master plan for the park. So obviously there are other, grant opportunities that could be explored for those things, but the focus of this original grant application was the improvement of the launch and related activities to that. So that's just kind of a quick summary of what's changed. From as Ron mentioned, the April plans to the plans as based on our discussions with Waterways.
One follow-up to that, Rick. So I think what I heard you say is that the proposed changes on the new drawing still comply with the basic elements of the Waterways grant.
Yes, we reviewed these changes, and again, they recognize that with COVID, it's definitely a different dynamic, and with inflationary pressures, that we're still meeting the spirit of the intent of that with the elements as are presented in these documents.
Okay. Good. Board members, Cheryl?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that the project has had to be scaled down, but because I believe that the original project is the best option for Whitewater Township Park, particularly because I just spend a lot of time at the park and I see the backup of boats during the heavy times, and I just, we need to accommodate the boating activity out there. People are not going to stop coming to the park. People are not going to be happy if they're told, well, we're out of parking places. You can't, you can't launch here. They've been parking all along the grass and off to the sides of the dump station. People don't even realize that the campers are asked to take their boats back to their campsites, so that you don't even see those boat trailers if you go out there. So there's a lot of demand for that launch. It's the, even on the ARPA survey that was done by the township, it is the most frequently used resource in the township, Elk Lake and Skegamog Lake. And I expect that that's going to stay that way. And we did see a little fall off in boat traffic this year, I think due to the gas prices. But, I think there's some people that don't care how expensive gas is, they're gonna go boating. And so the additional parking lot is even more important now that be maintained at the size it is on the plan, with losing the parking that is to the west of the ranger station. That's the overflow parking right there for people who may have visitors and only 2 vehicles are allowed on a lot. That's so that we keep the roadways open out there for emergency access. Once in a while, the fire truck and the ambulance do wind up at Whitewater Township Park, and they need to be able to get down those roads without any cars parked along the sites, narrowing up the roadway through there. So we've got to have a place where visitor cars can go. We've got to have a place where people can park their boats, that their lot isn't big enough. We tell people when they book, remember, if you're bringing a boat, you need to get a space, a site that's big enough for your camping unit and your boat trailer. Sometimes that's not always possible, and they put their boat trailer down in the overflow parking lot. Well, if we're going to lose all that parking down there, then it's all going to have to go to this new parking lot. And all of it is being done for safety purposes. I think that's the thing we need to remember. The dock is not long enough. People with the larger boats are having to jump off the front of their boat because they can't get up to their side of their boat up to the dock because the dock's not long enough. That's a dangerous thing to have going on down there. We do have, I'd like to think it's a little bit less, but yeah, have there been fights down there? Yes. Does the park rangers intervene? No, they don't listen to us, and park rangers are not trained to break up fights. We call the police, or other campers call the police. And sometimes it's due to drinking. This happens at every launch in the state of Michigan. I don't care what launch you go to, unless it's a really dinky launch that, hardly anybody launches there. But these types of things happen because boaters get impatient, and they've been circling out on the water for a half an hour, sometimes twice as long as that, waiting to get in out of the water. That becomes a safety issue if some dangerous weather comes up and forces people off the lake. And so the docks, we need another dock. Unfortunately, it's looking like we're only going to get one extra ramp, which is only going to partially alleviate the problem down there. But if that's what we have to do to get the cost reined in a little bit, then I guess that's what we have to do. But it's all safety. It's all safety related. It's and nothing's been done at that boat launch down there in 24 years. So it's way past time for an upgrade. My hope earlier this year was that this project was going to be put out for bid. A general contractor was going to be found. They would hire the subs. Fleece and Vandenbrink would manage the project, and there would be construction going on there right now, because we don't want to lose we didn't want to lose the peak of the boating season, which is June, July, and August. And, shoving things to the spring, you got to remember, you got the frost laws to deal with. So heavy equipment can't be moved until, at least halfway through April. So spring, things have to be started, they need to be started in the fall. It was all meant to get it done as soon, and we were even ready to, this year, if we had to, close the launch right after Labor Day, because the traffic drops off tremendously after Labor Day, and get at least the boat launch part of it done down at the water there while no one was, or while less traffic would have been using the launch. And, we can work on that parking lot, and we could have worked on, and still can, work on the entryway project through the winter time. But I really don't want to, it's sad that we're possibly in a state right now where we're going to have the ramp closed for some part of the peak season next year. So, and the improvements to the entryway, that's another safety issue. I challenge anybody to go out there in July and August. We have one intersection through which all traffic travels in and out of the park. The traffic out of the campground, the traffic out of the boat launch, and the traffic coming into the park. It's a major congested area. Children are on foot in that area. Children are on bikes in that area. Adults are on foot in that area. We've had people, 2 different times, we've had boats that nearly took out the last post on the ranger station because, they didn't get out far enough before they made their turn. And and also that was to widen that to 2 lanes as you're coming into the park, so that you don't have what happens when you have camper check-ins, which can happen, supposed to happen after 3. It's 2 or 3, I forget which, I think it's 3 now. But anyways, what happens is the road is narrow. And so you get boats that just want to get to the boat launch stuck behind motorhomes, fifth wheels, camper trailers, whatever that's coming in to check in. And of course, there's a bit of a process, to the check-in process, 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. Meantime, these boats that just want to get down to the boat launch are stuck behind these RV units. And so that's why we have the 2 lanes over on the thing, so that the boaters can go off to the right and get to the boat launch. And probably that's going to require some kind of gate or something, with people having a pass or able to buy a pass there or something like that. But it's all being done for safety, for the fact that the dock is in terrible shape. It needs to be upgraded. That dock is no paint on the bottom of it, sitting there in the water, rusting most of the season. And the project needs to go forward. And I think that Rick and Andrew have done a great job scaling this project down. And I just will make one more comment about this campground closure thing. Where that all originated was at the budget work session on February 17th of this year. I was presenting the park fund and recreation fund budgets, and Ron made the comment, "We'll close the campground." Well, that got around to campers. We've been dealing with it all summer at the park. People wondering if Whitewater Township Park's going to be closed. And so when you make comments like that, they get out to the public, and they put a question in people's minds, and that's where all of that is coming from. But I would urge the board to get this project out for bid at this meeting. Thank you.
Heidi?
Cheryl, we were in the budget meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay.
Interrupt, direct her remarks to you. Thank you.
So we have the engineers who we're paying online. Let's try and mold our questions towards directly to them. I realize that isn't the feeling today.
I was just gonna ask a couple questions about project management. No
Okay,
problem.
that's fine.
Hey, I'll go right to the F&B guy.
Okay.
Sir, I heard your spirit and intent, but spirit and intent to me means I get a bathroom. So, I'm just disappointed that the bathrooms and maybe a few beach improvements weren't put in the scale down. But, okay. And I read in your documents that you sent, it's the Whitewater Township Park Final Engineering for Water Rate Grants Improvement. How are you gonna track your hours, and how will we know what you're doing when you're tracking those hours? Will you be on site? It says you're gonna be on site and adjusted on a week-to-week basis. Will we be getting a weekly report, a monthly report? Just curious, and that's all I got right now.
Rick or Andrew, any thoughts?
I can answer those. Historically, we do a monthly, kind of a monthly progress meeting report to the board. And we have bi-weekly progress meetings on site, which again, any of the board members are welcome to participate in.
Thank you.
Ardella?
Sorry. So what I'm hearing is, one of the concerns was who's going to manage the project itself. And if this project goes through, Fleece and Vanderbrink would be the project managers. So I think that answers that particular question. It's not going to be any one board member that'll be doing it. The money's there to do this pared down project. The money's actually there to do the full scale project that was first proposed. The changes, for lack of better saying, if this is all we can get, I would go with it. I believe we need to get this out for bid before the prices go up, because the prices are not going to go down. And as it was pointed out by one of the people that had their emails read, or maybe they actually were one of the people that spoke, this project was approved by all board members at a board meeting. Board members have changed and attitudes have changed. But we went through public hearings where the people spoke out. There was a full 30 days of people commenting. All were in favor. There were some concerns from people that live on the lake about the amount of traffic it might increase. And I'm sensitive to that. But when I look at the vote that happened at our last board meeting where park funds were voted by Glenn, Ballmuth, and Pop to move into the general fund, I want the people to be aware of how much money we're talking about. Right now, as of the last meeting where it was reported, which is August 31st, there's $421,200 or $21.08 in the park fund that is all been saved and generated by user fees only, no taxpayer funds. What is sitting in the general fund is $816,855.13. Traditionally, the only time you move funds from a user fee fund to a taxpayer fund is if your general fund is in trouble. I would not say an almost $1 million fund sitting there is in any kind of trouble for a township of our size. It's not. This is clearly a money grab. So before this goes any further, I believe this project needs to be forwarded, because if you're emptying the funds by the end of November, then you're going to easily be able to say there's no matching funds, which is not fair to the people that has worked really hard on this and the citizens that have spoke today that says that they want this project done. That's all I have to say.
Don? Thank you, Ron. There's a lot to unpack there. To Rick and Andrew, thank you very much for coming back and looking at this project in pieces. That was our ask. It was, I think we talked about back on August about the long-term issue with the pit toilet, and could this be woven into this project to bring a long-term solution, permanent solution to that. We do appreciate, at least I appreciate you following up with the Waterways Grant people, which is what you said you do, and getting a definitive answer from them on the scope of this project. So the objection to this project has always been the $750,000 estimated, bringing it down to a $400,000 project, which is $200,000 in the grant from the state and $200,000 from the township is a great starting point. And I have a number of questions on the project management and the big bid package. So if Andrew or Rick, if you can field these for me and answer these as succinctly as possible. I don't want to keep everybody here for hours, but I do have a page of notes that I'd like to
Go right ahead.
So I understand that F&B is going to be the project manager. Is that you, Rick, or is that you, Andrew, that are most familiar with this, or will you be delegating this to a subordinate in F&B?
We will be handling the office portion of it. We will be utilizing someone out of our Traverse City office on the day-to-day, site visits. But we will, both Andrew and myself will remain involved in this project through the final completion.
Okay, so you'll be overseeing the administrative side of it, make sure that the schedule.
Schedule, meeting minutes, all that good stuff will be, if there are any modifications to the project, that'll be handled through Andrew and myself.
Okay, thank you. I also noticed on your website that you folks have a construction department. Is F&B planning on bidding on this project?
No. This is set up for, this project is set up right now as what we would call a general contractor mode type of bidding format. And that contract, we help oversee the contract, but the actual contract itself is between the selected contractor and directly with Whitewater Township.
Thank you for clearing that. And let's talk about that for a second, because back when the project manual which included the bid package, was dated February 9th, 2022, then it was finally put out it was put out April 8th, and then the set of drawings came on April 29th. Then we got a revised project manual that was updated 8/1. In the original project manual, the bid package, there were a number of issues or decisions that the board had to consider from a cost standpoint on how to bid this project. In the updated project on 8/1, all those decisions were made. Who made those?
I'm not sure I follow your.
Well, there were a number of sections in the bid package where we needed to discuss how we wanted the bid package to go out. The bid package that was revised on 8/1 without any board action took all those decisions, all those decision-making trees were gone. The bid package was selected. Did you folks select those for us?
Historically, some of the things that we work with you on are like the dates of construction itself. But the very nature of the project manual, other than some minor edits here and there, is substantially been fairly consistent with the general contractor bidding documents. Historically, like I said, the biggest feedback is more of the timing aspect.
Okay, we'll stick a pin in that because it appears the board was circumvented on those decisions. So the F&V services contract that exists today of approximately $52,000 that does not get reflected in the updated numbers. It hasn't for quite some time. The first bid package that came out had your engineering fees in there, and they've been left off since that first quote came out. And to date, we're probably close, depending on how you look at the ledger, between $35,000 and $40,000 spent. And that goes back a couple months, so it could be more. But the services contract is for $52,000. Your services as the project manager, let's just hypothetically say we're at 40,000. Are your services as the project manager going to be $12,000? Or will there be another F&V services contract above the 52,000 to manage this project?
Basically, our agreement goes all the way through construction. So if everything holds true, we do not anticipate, any additional agreements.
Okay. And then you just to clarify, you're not visiting the job site weekly. Your Traverse City field representative will be out there bi-weekly.
I mentioned that we typically have bi-weekly progress meetings. That's different from site meetings. Again, we try to program those when there's critical elements or junctures in construction. Historically, in a boat launch type of situation, that would probably be the majority of time when they're doing the stone ballast base, because that sets a lot of the framework for the setting of the planks.
Okay, so it's not fair to characterize it as once a week, or it's just as the event calendar warrants less or more supervision is what I think I hear you saying.
That's correct. And we can work with, again, the part of that will be dictated at the biweekly progress meetings, again, which of the township, we can work with a contractor on when those critical dates are going to occur. Also, that's also formulated when, as part of the pre-construction meeting with the contractor is required to submit a detailed project schedule. And then that's when we will sit down and kind of try to target together what some of those milestones will be.
Very well. The monthly progress reports to the board, are those you're popping on an agenda and giving us a verbal report? Is that a structured written report that comes to us that we can have time to preview?
Yes.
And then be able to ask questions within our meeting in terms of anything of concern?
That would be correct. We'd like to get those to you probably, again, set a date to get them a week prior to your board meetings. So you'd have those, time to digest those and prepare any questions or thoughts. But hopefully, again, we'd like to say if some of the board members could participate in some of the site progress meetings, that would also be a big help as well.
Okay. Next question, and I think we talked about this earlier this year, whether it was May or June, and I think you folks, and I appreciated your honesty about it, that basically a project like this is not something that F&V has personally done or been involved in. And I think if I recollect, your answer was that you would be farming this out or putting this out to bid to contractors that you believe may have the specialty to work with a lake bed floor and to work in the water and to efficiently bring this project on budget. Is that still the case?
Yes, that's the case. We do have a construction management division, but again, we aren't, I'd use the word self-performing, where the basis of this type of work is unique. That again, that's why what you have in front of you is more of a general contractor bid package, which would be hopefully soliciting people that have that expertise in marine work and water work.
And I guess going back to the uniqueness of the marine work here, and there is no plan to do a pre-bid meeting. We're basically, the way it's set up, I believe, to just send out the bids or to post them on the the construction website. It escapes me what the name of that is at this point. But since we're not doing a pre-bid meeting, as I'm sure you can attest to, and my personal experience as well, what is the plan for field work change orders? Since there's no chance to do a pre-bid meeting with the pool of contractors to go through the scope of work and try to address questions and concerns that they see as being experts to do this work, things that have been missed or possibly missed. How are we going to handle field work change orders? Because those will need board approval. So the question becomes is how does that information get back to us quick enough so that there is an implied perception that board members are holding up this project, that because they're going to have to be addressed. If the reality is there's going to be some field work change orders. It's hard to imagine that there wouldn't be. So how do you handle that with other municipalities?
Well,
with us.
Are you talking during construction or?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, because just generally the way the process generally works, and I'll just start even before bidding. A project goes out to the bid rooms, contractors, and we basically keep what we call plan holders of record list. That basically, if there are issues or questions that come up, and basically any contractor can issue a request for clarification prior to bidding, which we address via addendums. And that's pre-bid. Post-bid, it changes, and the manual speaks about several different ways to do that. Either a contractor can request clarification on an item or a work directive, or there is what we call a change order process. Any change order will require the township's approval, as well as contractor acceptance, and as well as our agreement that what is being proposed is fair and equitable, not only to the contractor but the township themselves. So it is a three part approval on any financial change to the project. And then there are also language in the contract document that for other types of resolving issues or concerns that may center around a change order, and if mediation is necessary, that process is spelled out. We've never seen it, it really get to that level. I think usually the contract involving all three parties is pretty clear on the processes that need to be done in order to basically resolve any of those financial changes to the project.
Thank you. And I'll ask this question. I have more questions for you in just a moment, but I do want to make sure that the next question I ask is factual. It's my understanding from my fellow board members, because I think this was passed or was looked at in January of 2022. This $200,000 matching grant requires Whitewater Township to spend $200,000. My recollection is that Whitewater Township is going to need to spend all of the $400,000 and then submit to the state, to the waterways grant for reimbursement. Is my recollection of that correct or incorrect?
Yes, I believe you're correct. It's a reimbursement program. Again, historically grants programs will allow milestone or partial reimbursement. So again, it's a function of working with the township to get the information submitted to Whitewater, to the waterways group on grant reimbursement, either partial or the other aspect to keep in mind is historically grant agencies will withhold about 10% of the project cost until like they have had a chance to come up and do a final review before they will release that last 10%.
Thank you. That's where I was going with that in terms of asking if there were milestones that the Waterways Grant would consider, that way that the township isn't just farming out the money and then having to wait for it. And in your experience with Waterways Grant, as a follow-up on that, what type of timeline on reimbursement do they take after the package has been submitted, assuming it's complete and to their liking? What's a reasonable amount of time to expect reimbursement from the Waterways Grant folks on the money we submitted for?
I would say reasonably 45 to 60 days to be safe.
Okay.
Another aspect, the other aspect of historically, this project is set up as what we call a measurement and payment section. So what a contractor will do, they will submit a pay application for our review, which we will share with the township. And basically, does the completion match what is being asked for any partial payment? Generally, that information in a pay application serves as the basis of request to Waterways for your reimbursement. I would expect that normally a project of this size and scale, you would probably have in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 maximum pay applications that would probably be submitted.
So thank you for that. You also mentioned, I guess we're talking about the field supervisor, field inspector, bi-weekly meetings out on the site. What's your experience and how do you handle a contractor if they go off schedule? The schedule is very important in terms of getting the project done from day one to completion. And since the township is not likely not to be familiar with a maritime and construction firm and no hands-on experience with them,
yeah.
How do you handle if they get off schedule?
Well, I think that's part of every progress meeting, and definitely every monthly every kind of overview report to the board is looking at those schedule items, working with the contractor to make sure they stay on schedule. Every contract manual that we prepare does have liquidated damages clauses in it to basically help prod any contractor along to meet those deadlines. And those amounts generally range from anywhere between $450 a day for this size project and could be as high as $900 a day for failure to complete. Generally, those come into play if there are site conditions or something that arises. Again, the contract, our general conditions outline very clearly the process that if something comes to light, typically a contractor has so many days to make a written notice, again, so we can bring it to your attention if there's some issue that needs to be resolved. And if they do not do that within a certain period of time, then the contract date is the contract date. So it does, I think, like I explain to people, it does, sometimes those manuals seem quite lengthy, but those 78 pages of general conditions are there really to protect the township and really to ensure, to really get the contractor to perform in a timely manner.
Well, I would agree. At 245 plus pages in that project manual, it is comprehensive. I would also ask and wonder if a procedural step is, given the large expenditure on this project and the township being responsible for cost overruns, getting the bids open. If we put this out to bid and get the bids back and there's more than one contractor, or even if there is one contractor that we're interested in doing business with, what would be the protocol, or is it commercially acceptable that we would want to interview that contractor just to make sure that that we're clearly, we understand the scope of the work and we're not missing anything that, that would cost us substantial funds down the road because we missed something. What's your thoughts on that process?
Historically, what we do is even, we'll get basically, we hold the bid opening typically at the community's, the township hall. Everything is public. We will open the bids. We basically review them for completeness. And then we basically say, we issue what we call as read results. And then we'll go back and then we'll start doing the process of asking contractors to submit references that can be checked. Interviews are also a possibility. Again, depending on which contractor and their experience level, that could also be a step prior to award of the contract to whatever general contractor is deemed most appropriate and the one that the township feels comfortable with. There's also provisions in there in the language that the township has the right to waive informalities and really award the contract is what in their best interest. So that comes into play if you've got a contractor that is a low bidder that may not have that experience. And again, back to the township's comfort level, if you feel more comfortable with a more qualified bidder, and even though it's not the lowest price, then we will have to basically get Waterways to understand the process and also to get their acknowledgement to that. But that has happened on past projects as well, that it's got to go to the best qualified bidder, not necessarily the low bidder.
Given the uniqueness of the work, I couldn't agree more. As part of that process you just described, is there also, if there's more than one bidder, is there a summary matrix or some tool that gets multiple bids boiled down to apples, so we don't have somebody deliberately low bidding a project and we get slammed with field work change orders because this was unclear or not, or was part of it. It goes back to what I think you just mentioned. Talking about a well-defined contractor versus somebody that maybe has less experience in marine work.
Well, like I mentioned earlier too, is the contract is set up in a line item basis, and each line item has a measurement and payment on what goes into and constitutes a paid unit of whatever it may be. When we have the bid opening, we will have that itemized list, and we will be able to, again, share with the township board the complete list of all the bidders, all their unit pricing. It's really what we call, again, totally open book, if you will. And that bid, we call it a bid tabulation. So all that information is made available to the general public and also shared with Waterways and that's part of that whole evaluation, is looking at those items and even discussions with the bidders as if we see any anomalies. That's something that we'll have to explore on. Well, why is this and why is this? That's definitely going to come into the whole conversation and the whole process of selecting the contractor that's really best able to perform the project.
And I believe the last question I have at this time, and I've read through this project manual twice and it's blurry-eyed. I just don't remember seeing in there, does the bid package, and the reason I bring this up is because if the area of which the work is going to take place, there is foot traffic across from the day beach, there's the pavilion, there's certainly cars just going in and out to the launch area. And I'm most concerned, does the bid package specify a request for that there is a construction site safety plan that we can review that is going to prevent any of our citizens, especially children, from accidentally wandering into the work area and getting hurt?
Typically, the construction safety plan will be presented at what we call the pre-construction meeting. Basically, that meeting happens Once the contractor is selected, but prior to construction, then the project schedule and a safety plan are required to be part of the very first submittal, if you will, by the contractor at that very first meeting. So those items will be on file and basically become part of the contract documents.
Is that site construction, that site construction plan an item that you deal with as the project manager, or do you review that in tandem with the board and potentially look at any deficiencies or any areas that we may see that the contractor doesn't recognize fully from either just visiting the site once or twice or not just looking
Yes.
at the drawings?
Yeah, we definitely can make that available to get your input as well. And if there are, we'll review it, but your input would be also greatly appreciated. That if there are some unique things that the way the park functions that we may not be aware of as well, it would definitely be great to have your folks' input and to make sure that those items are at least addressed to your satisfaction.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for taking time to answer those questions.
Welcome.
Hello, Rick and Andrew. This is Ron Pop. I'll begin in just a moment. I first of all want to invite anyone and everyone who has a question about whatever you've read or whatever has been written or posted on social media. Call or write your board member whose name has been printed. Thank you. So, Rick, I too share a concern about the project manual. And so I will be very specific on the first 20 pages, who made the changes.
The first 20, let me,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you talking about where in the one version of the project manual, there were yellow highlights?
For sure.
And then those were,
Yeah.
okay. F and V did that. I had no input on that. No board member has had any input on that.
Those were to come to us. We're the specifier.
If you want to change something, just let them know. I mean, yeah,
I
didn't
want
have
to
any-
know who's making changes on a project. That's what I want to know, Cheryl.
They made,
And
they
until I
made,
get an answer from them,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm not
telling you
supportive.
that they made the changes.
basically our
Authority to do that.
I didn't give, no one gave them authority to do that. They just did that, I think, to get dates filled in and stuff like that.
we generally prepare project manuals, and we have our internal QA/QC review of quality control, quality assurance go over every project. I'm guessing that many of those changes were basically based on their feedback and their questions. Again, it is a draft copy. Anything that you see, or if there are any questions or comments that we still need to address, because we still have to go back and revise some of that front end of that document due to waterways in the scaled back version. Feel free to offer up any comments or suggestions if there's something that wants to be changed. Again, that's really a draft format, for lack of a better term. And as this project has been kind of fluid the last couple of months, we've been kind of holding out on making anything final. So.
Sure. My next comment to the board is on project management. And Rick, I guess we could go through a little clarification. Excuse me, here if time permits. I'm going to circle back to the project management question. I apologize. Let me get right into the design elements. Like Cheryl, I noticed that the placement of the proposed boat wash consumed the additional off-site parking. It also seems like it's a very awkward location why wouldn't we bring that down into just the boat wash portion of the Y driveway, which would also lend very nicely to be a contiguous development with the parking lot. That was, I'm not clear why the boat wash got put where it did.
Well, one of the original master plan and what went in initially under the waterways grant was that was one of the secondary locations that was earmarked as part of that whole original design process. So we can definitely look at if there's another location, Ron. You know, I think there's a lot of activity that focuses around people tying up and tying down their boats. I think it really should be, you know, in its own designated area where it's not, you know, going to interrupt any flow, you know, either into the park and definitely, you know, there's going to be, I guess, a good amount of traffic on boats launching. So I don't really see where, you know, anywhere, you know, down by the boat launch itself is problematic. And I think going to create more of a traffic situation than what there would be any benefit. I think that was the location where it could catch people going in and out in an easy manner, serve both purposes. But again, if there's another location, we can definitely take a quick look and see if, because it is kind of, you know, yes, it is, you know, again, open to final thoughts.
To be clear, part of this project is to add parking, and we're eliminating part of the parking for the boat wash. And so it just seems counterintuitive. And I think a more desirable location closer to the Y in the road traffic pattern still accomplishes all of those goals, including an improved flow. Moving on to the parking, the proposed parking lot. The turning radiuses that are spec'd are clearly far too short and are all on the blind side of the vehicle. For those people who are skilled in backing combination vehicles, you will understand what I just said. For those of you who don't on a regular basis, the angle at which you're asked to park will require you to back out before you can go forward in many of the parking spaces, not all of them, but many. While not impossible, because most people driving a boat will know how to back up, what becomes a concern is darkness, doing that in the dark. And so I really see some type of lighting system available for this parking lot. It's going to be so far from the current light that is really at the head of the boat ramp. It won't receive any benefit. And I'm not a proponent of ruining the night sky, believe me. So I'm open to lots of suggestions, but if anybody's ever used a boat ramp in the dark and they had to back their vehicle up and then negotiate a couple of sharp turns, they'll appreciate at least reflectors that can help them locate curbs and so on and so forth. So maybe reflection devices are the way to handle that. And then water depth and dock length, we're still at 20 feet into the water. We're at 20 inches of water depth. So I still say that the back of my vehicle is underwater by the time I get my 24-foot boat off the trailer. Somebody, please prove me wrong.
Can you say that again, Ron? I didn't quite get what you were
Okay.
saying.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but from the water's edge, 20 feet into the water depth is 20 inches. So think about a 24-foot boat sits on a 24-foot trailer plus maybe 4 foot of tongue. Okay.
Yeah.
But it also sits up 12 to 16 inches in height.
Yeah.
So the complaints have been, and Cheryl is correct, people can't pull their boat into the current dock. Why? Because the water's too shallow. It's still too shallow. Because when we back our vehicle in, the back of our vehicle is going to be underwater by the time our boat floats off the trailer. And so this deals specifically with the grade. And it's still the same as it was. Now, if you tell me that's the national average and that's how somebody says a good boat ramp should be designed, I'll default to that. But that question has been raised by me since day one.
Yeah, Ron, those gradients are historically for the really provided by waterways at their direction.
Okay.
That's the standard gradient and ramp design for any boat launch that's been built in Michigan for the last 50 years.
Okay.
And I think also that's why the increased length, I think, was to help with some of that. But again, I'm just trying to pull up the detail to see what it would be in.
You know, the back of my vehicle, for example, is not in the water in Elk Rapids. However, the back of my vehicle is flooded if I launch at Baggs Road. Both of those ramps were built within the past 50 years. Something must be different. Maybe the dam between Elk Lake and Skigmog changes the water level.
It's possible.
It is. And so then this is, again, a rhetorical question, Rick. I've done a lot of investigation on previous boat ramps. Take a look at Crescent Shores and Long Lake. They're redoing their boat ramp after 4 years. They spent $400,000 on their boat ramp and they're redoing it. They're pulling it out. Do you know why?
Yes.
Because the same planks that F&B spec'd for them are being spec'd on our project.
No, I believe theirs was actually poured in place, Ron.
That's right.
Their problem is basically their ramp was designed too narrow and it cannot accommodate the amount of users in the boats. And I can speak from experience. We just wrote their waterways grant for them. So their problem is it's just the number of boaters. That launch was woefully narrow and under designed to be able to handle multiple people coming in and trying to launch and retrieve at the same time. So their ultimate goal is to really triple the size of that launch because it just cannot accommodate the sheer numbers of voters. Not only was the ramp not large enough, the on-site parking was woefully inadequate, and you've got people parking all the way down Crescent Shores, and in some cases even parking around the corner. And so they want to virtually double, if not triple, the on-site parking. So I think that it's one of those things where I think and I didn't realize until we started working with them on the grant application that there's only really 2 public launches on that entire lake. And Crescent Shores being one, and I forget what they call the other one, Dead Man's Curve or something, where you have to back, the parking is across the street and you have to back across the road and into the lake. And basically, I think their goal is eventually to phase that launch out if this was expanded to the size that it really should have been, because just the sheer logistics is just, it's just overwhelmed it to where they realize it's not functioning. It's not in a,
The point is that they have in their previous design used these planks, and they know that they have to go with a cofferdam design. So, and again, thinking that this is a 20-year project, right? Earlier, I think we heard testimony that nothing's been done to this thing in 24 years, and that we do have the concrete moving about and so on and so forth for the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever the number is. Do you think the coffer design is more expensive than what is proposed here?
well, what a simple answer to that might be is we could add in the bid documents an alternate bid item for that very possibility of a coffer construction, and then we would know exactly whether it's more or less. My guess is, again, speaking with waterways, and the DNR, actually, they have their own crews that do their installation. They basically use the plank construction. They don't do the cofferdam methodology. But again, that's something that we could very easily add as a bid alternate. That way, again, the township would have the full information, and we could see, is it more, is it less?
A follow-up to that is, are you aware of any engineering data that would support the use of one design over another?
No, I think it's just a contractor preference. And I think that's the other aspect of, we like to keep it open for people in the marine industry to choose their methodology. We don't like to dictate. Whatever gets the best product and the best price, we're comfortable with really either way. We've just seen that the plank system is more cost advantageous, but again, it's definitely unique in the shifting market right now. It would, I would be, happy to just say, let's include that alternate method of construction as and as a bid alternate, and we can see both delivery options.
Okay. And so the last item really has me wondering how to answer it, and it is about demand. So in an earlier meeting, I think we were supplied some information that there's about 13 launches or 14 launches a day on average. And we heard testimony that there's huge congestion on weekday or holidays when you're attempting to launch and so on and so forth. I think I experienced that in a restaurant that same holiday weekend. And it's interesting that the restaurant doesn't engineer its kitchen to produce according to the holiday food schedule.
Bingo.
Now, I do like the idea of 4, quite frankly. I'm a proponent of having 2 docks and 4 lanes. The traffic flow across those 3 concern me. for safety reasons. But just for the record, I am a proponent of 4 because I think we're going to have increased boat traffic, especially if we can get Park Road paved. And I do like your recommendation, Rick, that the pit toilets, the pavilion, the day use portion of the park, also as we receive testimony, I'm going to say maybe in August, that those two are important parts of the park that have been ignored over the past 24 years. In part because we just, we don't have the funding to do those things. So I do like your response about maybe a secondary grant process away from waterways. I think that's a great recommendation.
Well, here's a good example of something like a simple, what we call 2 unisex concrete vault toilet system. Again, not a lot of bells and whistles, but again, very durable, a decent aesthetic to it. That the price of a dual unit like that has went up about 25% since 2021. Doing something as simple as a dual vault toilet will probably starting point somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 for that double unit, and could go as high as maybe another $10,000 for miscellaneous site work around it, sidewalks, other type of things. So I think one of the conversations was getting a vault toilet in this project. I think our goal was to come up with something scalable and not take it the other way financially. And there are opportunities with the new Spark program, which I would say, and I can send you all the information. There's going to be an informational webinar on this Friday.
Right.
So feel free to register and sit through that overview. And again, it doesn't have to be an urgent thought process on the township's part. There will be a first round this December, and then there's going to be a larger round in sometime in March and April of 2023, and then probably another round somewhere in August of 2023, because the state is distributing some of that ARPA money through this program. So there will be 3 opportunities as well through Spark to look at some of those other long-term needs at any of the township parks. And that also has the advantage over waterways, where the required local monies is much lower than waterways. They're saying that there's no match required, but we always take that with a grain of salt, because it's all about scoring and what are other communities doing. But it's going to be a much easier financial in for a lot of communities than, say, waterways or some of the other DNR grant programs.
Yes. And I'm already registered. I hope everyone who is involved in this process or interested in it is also registered with that program. And I guess my final comment is also revolving around scalability, and specifically, while we currently have data on a certain boat wash piece of equipment, I'll say, what I'm educating myself on is something completely different, which does require access to water and electricity. I would definitely implore the board to think about at least running conduits or electrical underneath the roadway infrastructure that's being changed to whatever area the boat wash station winds up at. I think that as technology moves forward in boat washes, our needs may change, and it would be great to have availability of water and electricity.
Yep. I would also encourage the board, Ron, to talk to people like Jordan Bilick at Waterways on the boat wash philosophy. Um, they're really focused on not whether it's the dry or the wet system, but it really their whole feeling is it starts at an educational level. And then also you got the enforcement aspect of it too. It's such a multifaceted situation that they don't really I guess they're even more direct, and they steer clear of really recommendations because you've got the manpower and the manning of a pressure system and that cost, and then even the initial installation cost. Even Jordan's like, it's easily double if not triple the dry system. So there's a lot of things that go into that. The but again, that's a whole nother a whole nother realm. And like you said, and the technology is going to change in the near future, the coming years. So it's good to stay up on all that. And again, I would also highly encourage people to attend that webinar because it does give you an insight to how grants work and what goes into it, and all those logistics, and also timing. It's a lot more than I think a lot of people see on the surface, but it's good to have a lot of people knowledgeable on it because it just, I think, gives everybody a good understanding of what's involved, what some of the initiatives are, that are so often the difference between failure and success. If you can kind of highlight those in your grant proposals, it really, I think, helps out a community get some of that money directed to their coffers.
Well, on your point about staffing, let me just point out that 99.99% of the car washes I've ever visited in my life have been self-serve. Somehow we got by. And so I think the staffing issue is really put forth as a hurdle for smaller communities like Whitewater to try and accommodate staffing. I can't imagine visiting a car wash where I have a servant do that for me, but I suppose that day is coming. So that's really the end of my engineering comments. And so to sum up my actual blueprint comments, it's location of the proposed boat wash, running utilities to the location of the proposed boat wash, and somehow detailing, and this may be a post-construction project, somehow detailing all of the finite curves that have to be negotiated when using the overflow parking lot, either through reflection devices or some type of utility device like a parking lot light.
Yeah.
But thinking about putting the utilities underground so they're already on the new side of the road. I don't care how far they go, just get them under the road.
When you first started, you said something about project management, board project management. You'd come back to it. Are you still coming back to it?
Yeah.
I left the spot here.
Well, okay. So for the last several months, I've been writing about project management and the disapproval that Green Lake and Long Lake Township have expressed with respect to this particular vendor. And so, as far as project management, I'm not going to support anything that deals with F&B for project management. And if you have additional questions on that, like I've said for the past 3 or 4 months, please call Green Lake, Long Lake supervisors. Some of their projects are $1 million over budget before they got walls up. Now, that's not all F&B's fault, but how it gets addressed is. But that doesn't stop this bid process. That does not stop this bid process.
Yes, those are totally different bid processes.
Yeah.
Conversation for a different day, or did you have a suggestion in mind?
Nope. The suggestion is that we just have a third-party project manager, another engineering firm if we need be. I'm certain we can find somebody. If not, then we have to go with the choices that are available to us. So any final questions for engineering staff?
I do have a question. So Rick, we had another large, similar size project in this township in terms of the cost. And we had an engineer, engineering firm such as yourselves, and a general contractor. And we had every 2-week progress meetings. I went to every single one of them. And once a month, the general contractor would present a pay application, and the engineer would also be at that meeting. And the engineer would walk around and make sure, because many things were 25% done or 30% done or whatever, and that increased as the project went along. And with a corresponding dollar amount that went with each subcontractor's percentage of work that they had done. The pay application was very easy to understand. It had what they'd already been paid, what was requesting to be paid this time due to the fact that they'd completed, this additional work. And then, like I said, the engineering firm, which on this project would be your office, would sign off on the pay application, certifying that all of that additional work had been done and had been done to the expected standards. Is that the type of procedure that would be used on this project?
Yes, that pay submittal, not only we review it, but then the contractor is certifying that those numbers, and we'll verify those numbers. And we also try to be conservative. We definitely don't want anybody having larger percentages under a pay application is actually complete. So we are very judicious on review of those as well. But all those get reviewed based on the submittal by the contractor, again, for your review as well.
And another question I have is, your firm has been thrown under the bus here with complaints that somehow you've got something to do with lack of progress or cost overruns in Green Lake and Long Lake Township, which I believe are both building fire stations, if I'm correct. Could you please, I don't want the meeting to end without your firm getting an opportunity to explain what has occurred in those two townships from your perspective. Could you please explain those?
I'm not going to get into a lot of depth. I mean, every project is unique. Every project has some issues. Unfortunately, those projects were run through our construction management division. And yes, there are definitely things that we wish would have turned out differently. But now our goal is to complete those projects to the satisfaction as best we can, to everybody's satisfaction, and get the contractors and subcontractors to perform. But it's been it was far from a perfect process, and we acknowledge that. And we're standing, as a construction manager, we're standing behind rectifying some of those issues, especially at Green Lake Township.
And just to be clear, Rick, I can't imagine managing a project during the period that we are hopefully exiting with respect to supply chain issues and just all of the immense amount of I'll say minutia that we didn't know we had to deal with, for lack of a better term, and excuse my unprofessionalism, but
Oh no, it's been an incredibly challenging, I'll be honest with you, 3 years in the industry as a whole. Back to, I think, some of the comments of our bidding document being so lengthy. We've had just because of some of those issues between COVID, consumers energy on another park project. That park project is going on. It took 3 years, which originally was anticipated to take 5 months.
yeah,
So obviously a lot happens between 5 months and 3 years that impact the schedule, the cost. And I think, again, our goal is still to deliver kind of a project which again meets any community's needs. Unfortunately sometimes that comes with some painful lessons learned, and I guess that's the key of lessons learned, is you learn from them and try to move on. So the fire stations again were very, very challenging, and we've all I can say is we've got some new people in place here, and Doug, who is heading up our CM division on those, and he is moving heaven and earth to get those buttoned up.
good luck. Board, anything else for Rick or Andrew?
I have one.
Okay,
In the the professional service agreements, it states here that, I'm just gonna read it. The owner's primarily responsible or representative for this, the owner's primary representative, for this project shall be the township clerk, who shall have actual authority on behalf of the owner and its governing body to make decisions in connection with the PSA. However, the township board must approve any decisions related to the PSA, which is the personal or professional service agreements, that entail an expenditure of $2,500 or more, or any decisions that, in the opinion of the engineer, would constitute a substantial change from the description of the project or scope of services.
yeah, that's what they wrote, but that isn't what we need to approve.
I have no problem with you taking township clerk out of there whatsoever.
No, my problem is that 900, 900, 900, if you really want to know. And my other problem is, Cheryl, I have dugouts that look like chicken houses. So this project ain't going down the drain on my watch. That's all I have. So are we doing anything about the 2,500 here, or is she gonna give rain to 2,500?
No, I'm not supportive that any board member takes that particular post. Number one, we're not project managers. Number two, I want the first board member to raise their hand who isn't busy enough already. We are currently part-time staff, and we're pushing 30 to 40 hours a week. Cheryl's probably pushing more. To throw on a $500,000, $750,000 project on somebody else's plate, no, I'm not in favor of
I'm
that.
not either. I'm just asking about the amount.
I understand. And so I think it's important for the board to determine who or what company is going to fulfill that position. And then we can determine the amount. Our current financial policy says $1,000, that Cheryl and I can authorize $1,000. Well, $1,000 doesn't buy much today. So maybe we do want to review it, or maybe we want to keep it in accordance with our current policy and procedure for purchasing things. but not sure that's an engineering question.
Okay, their name's on the contract I'm reading.
I get it. But we could certainly have the prints put out for bid and have the results returned to F&V. Or have them returned to the board in general. My only concern, I guess, for the engineering staff is I had 3 areas of comment: location of boat wash, utilities, and the third one was single pour. I think we addressed the single pour, and I think we addressed utilities. We can probably include that in a manual. Does anybody see the need to relocate the boat wash, the proposed location of the boat wash facilities before going out to bid? Or are you good enough with the location?
Well, that keeps it a long ways from the water. So,
Yes, it does.
But it also eliminates your parking, which I'm not, the current overflow parking, which seems to be counterproductive to me. I get it, it's an opportune spot, but it just seems counterproductive. I'd much rather keep that overflow parking for the campground like it is currently, and just have them slide that boat wash closer to the Y in the driveway. And if it was on the right hand or inbound section of that Y, just before the opening to the parking lot, that would make that turning radius so much nicer.
just before the opening to the parking lot, that is on a hill.
I understand. It would have to be flattened, but then again, so is the parking lot. It's going to be flattened.
Well, where the parking lot's going, it's mostly flat already, but there is quite an elevation change there. Oh, where are you saying again?
So the Y,
Yep.
Park Road comes in, and Cheryl talked about the importance of separating. Thank you, Linda. Separating the camper traffic from the boat traffic.
Right, right.
She also brought up the fact that we're not sure how we're going to issue permits out there, which is a concern. And so I'm a proponent of bringing the gates back. So even though this particular drawing is not of sufficient scale to show where the new parking lot comes in at, which is right down here, I propose moving the boat wash station to somewhere in here rather than all the way up here. And so it keeps it closer to the future utilities, which are already right here. If that's the location of the ranger station. And in the case of water, I think this is the current dump station and where they pick up domestic water from. We're hundreds of feet closer.
But you're right next to where boats are gonna be lined up.
Boats shouldn't
Probably.
be lined up here. Boats should not be lined up
You
there.
get 2 or 3 boats in at once, and one's gonna sit behind the other, and the other's gonna sit behind the other for a few minutes till they get in.
And I waited at line in a restaurant.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, do you want them to have to back up then to get in the line if there is a line?
No, it's the same design, the same pull-out or bypass design that they've used 1,000 feet over this way. It's just relocated to here.
It's gonna be very congested in that area with campers and boaters.
I'm fine to go either way, whatever the board wishes.
Ron, looking at that map, I think you're onto something there. I think preserving the overflow parking at this point and trying to find a home to relocate that. Might not be optimal, but if we keep it on the inbound side, I think we can accomplish both things.
And maybe it's as simple as just making a bigger spot in the parking lot. But that could impede traffic flow, as Rick indicated. And that's,
Well, let me add one thing is, again, that unit is totally off the grid. It's solar powered. I mean, Ron, if you feel that Y is the location, if there are problems with the stacking, then that may need to rethink that. How valuable is that overflow trailer parking, which is a long distance from the launch itself? Maybe that's, for the lack of a better word, option B is the overflow trailer parking. And option A is to move it closer up towards that Y where people could, take advantage of it as they come in.
sure, I can appreciate that. And I think I also addressed the fact that, the CD3 boat wash stations, which are off grid, so to speak. Some of them are solar powered, so on and so forth, but those are only a half a step above not providing a boat wash facility at all, is at least the education that I've received. And so because we are planning for the future, running utilities to potentially a different spot, I think is money well spent. But again, I'm not going to hold up the project if the other board members don't see it that way.
Well, the other aspect too, Ron, like you mentioned, if conduit is put in place, conduit is relatively inexpensive under your pavement areas. So if you want to run utilities, that's a very easy thing to put in place. I would tell people as a general rule, yeah, I mean, if you want to throw in a 6-inch conduit or a real bundle of conduit under any pavement, you'll never go wrong with that. It's at some point in time, whether it's phone or electric or, who knows what, cable, it's there. The other aspect is you see a lot of contractors, directional drilling has gotten to be very, it's amazing on how they can track that and put it at the perfect depth. So that's also another possibility if you get long-term down the road. I don't think it's anything that you're doing that's short-sighted. I think there are also avenues that any future utility extensions can be easily accommodated.
Yeah, very good point there, Rick. I didn't think about directional drilling.
Oh, it's amazing how they can tell you exactly how deep it is and where it's at, and they can guide it. It's stunning. We did a couple.
We still cut the fiber.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't put in the right spot.
Sometimes, yeah, the only thing we like sanitary laterals or something that they don't know records of, then there's no way to locate that get hit. But in your situation out there being a little more rural, I don't think that that's a huge obstacle either way.
I have a question. So is it, we are going to be required to put in the hot water boat wash? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I don't think that's a requirement at all.
Okay, but you don't, but the air one, you don't want either.
Well, if you can take a look at all of the, I'll call it propaganda. Some people call it advertisement material. These things are great. The waterless systems are great for those facilities that are completely off grid, like in Fife Lake, for example.
Right.
I forget what the name of the road of the launch is, but there isn't power within a half a mile of that place.
Well, I would just point out, if you think you want to put a hot water system over there, like Rick said, that's gonna double or triple the price. Okay, to run hot water. I mean, if you were running it down to where they have the boat launch, boat wash station. Also, then what you've got to think about is that's gonna be a lot of maintenance. That's gonna have to be all winterized in the winter. Just as we have to do with everything else out there that has water. So,
It's the
I'm just
price you
thinking
pay for
that's-
invasive species protection.
well, I guess they should have started washing freighters 20 years ago then, huh? That's where they came in at. So, quite frankly, I'd like to see some data on boat washes. I'm not sure. I went out
You don't
there
have
the
to, it's the
weekend after
law.
Labor Day weekend and watched the tip of the mitts hot water boat wash operation, and I wasn't particularly impressed at its effectiveness, to tell you the truth. They don't wash the entire underside of the boat. The boat's on a trailer. You can't get to everything. You know, whether those are, certainly they are not 100% effective in removing invasive species off of a boat. But
And I don't believe the efficacy of seatbelts are 100% either, but I could be wrong.
so I know that Linda's group has been doing research on this. Are we looking for recommendations on what would be the best use for our money?
That's fine. And they're free to recommend whatever it is they wish. I was a huge proponent of hot water devices, but through my own education, I've learned that like with, for example, COVID, right? We saw these advertisement about cleansers that would help free your worries of COVID. But that's only if the material stayed on contact surface for 15 minutes. Well, who sprays something on, sets their watch, and then comes back 15 minutes later to wipe it off? Absolutely nobody that I know. And so did it do any good? Same with hot water. If you think you're going to use a steam cleaner in the general public, you're creating a hazard. Car wash temperature is lukewarm at best. It's convenient to hang on to. It's convenient to use in cold weather. Doesn't make you colder. So that's likely a modified heat system somehow where it's body temperature. I can't say at this point data says hot water is better. I think it's just the other way around. And so I was originally wrong, but I'm happy to share the data that I have if you're interested.
Is this a decision we have to make today?
It is not, no, but it merely speaks to location of boat wash station and how to run utilities to it. And I'm totally happy with Rick's recommendation of directional boring. That's something that did not cross my mind. So I'm good with that.
And we got 2 lanes coming in for boat traffic. Right? I see 2 arrows here.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2 widths. Yeah. Mhm.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
Not everybody's gonna use the boat washing station.
Right.
Because people wash their boats at home. You know, they don't want to come to a park necessarily and take their time boating, washing their vehicle, waiting in line. So Cheryl's concerned about the congestion that might happen here. Holding it up. Is that, Cheryl, do you think that's going to be alleviated by having these 2 lines? Maybe one could be listed as washing lane and the other one is just the going through lane? Because they've already taken care of their boat washing? Well, the 2 lanes are for, the closest one to the ranger station is for campers. And the second one over is for boats.
No, because we're already beyond the point of separation. between campground and boat ramp. Look at the drawing.
Yeah.
We're already beyond that separation point. And so there is,
Are there, you then right at the top of the hill there?
well, I just had the drawing up and showed
Right.
you where we were at. You know, your point about congestion, I'm sure that we could stop 2 lanes of traffic with congestion. I'm sure it can happen. I've been on I-75 when it's been stopped. Both directions. So it can happen. But as you point out, there are 2 lanes. One can certainly be a bypass for those people who maybe did take care of their boat in a different manner or at a different location. Because the law on boat washing is actually that you can't travel with aquatic hitchhikers on your equipment.
Yeah, the problem is they make these laws, but then they don't give you any money to enforce it.
I won't argue that point at all.
It's also been a law since 2019.
Right. But in 2020, we weren't allowed to get in boats, if you remember. In the state.
Well, in the state of Michigan, they're only giving you a 1-year reprieve and it's up.
So here's your 2 lanes. This was meant for camper traffic and the stacking of campers along here when there's 3 or 4 campers to check in. This was meant for boats to be able to come in and not have to wait behind campers. Campers, when they leave, they go here to the dump station and fill up, and then they go here to the campground. So boaters are generally going to be using this lane right here. Not to say they can't use that lane if there's no one there, but then you think the boat launch should go here? I'm sorry, the boat wash should go here? Is that what you're suggesting?
So I don't know why we would separate the traffic at the beginning of the Y for campground traffic. I see your point about registration. So if they're pre-registered, they can stay to the left. But if they're not pre-registered, then they have to go to the right and then pull to the dump station. Whether or not they want to dump, they have to go to the dump station.
We'll pull through. Well, no, they don't want to dump. They want to get water.
Okay,
They
so,
fill with water. They fill their tank.
or empty them. You
On
say
the way
fill,
out.
I say empty. You didn't fill them on their way out the last place? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. You could be filling and emptying. You
Well,
could be doing that.
we normally emptied, we didn't fill. When we enter the campground, we'd fill with water because you don't want to travel with it. You can
That's right.
help it
That's right.
and dump on the way out. That's what most campers do. They dump on the way out.
Which this design won't allow.
Sure.
No,
They come right out of here
Uh-huh.
and they come in here.
but that's the
Then they can
opposite,
go that way.
that's the opposite direction of the current design flow.
Campers pull in there all directions.
I understand
So they
that.
go, the traffic here is either way, whichever way they want to pull in there.
Sure.
When they pull out, they generally go like this. Then they have to come back around to the stop sign and go out like that. That's what they have to do currently. And you kept saying the Y, looking at that diagram, there's a lot of Ys there. So I was a little confused on what Y you were talking about.
I'm sorry, it's the initial one where I wrongly assumed that campers would not head towards if they were just going to camp and not launch a boat. But I can see where Cheryl is thinking everybody goes to the right no matter what, unless you're a pre-registered guest.
If you've
and
already
you're-
registered and you're coming in and out of the park, that's what that other side apparently is for. Well, tent campers, obviously, they don't go to the dump station. But a lot of the other campers do with water tanks.
And that's an administrative thing that we can change once the design is in place. And I think data would tell us a lot how to use that particular asset. For sure, we're going to need pavement markings. Was that your idea, Bella? Yeah, for sure,
That's
we're
what I
going to
was
need that.
thinking. You better get arrows.
We're
They
go-
better
we're
be
gonna
like
need a-
all over the place.
We're going to need a push me, pull me arrow.
Yep.
If I could ask Rick one question. Rick, on this, over here in front of the, across, between the ranger station and the land, and those two lanes, at one point there was a curb in there. Not a curb, but a little, I don't know what you call it, but a little divider thing, to keep traffic in one lane or the other. Has that been eliminated? I don't
Yeah,
see it.
just, I think that over the refinement just got eliminated because of does it create more of a maintenance issue than it solves? Like Ron had mentioned, I mean, in a perfect scenario, if you could get Park Road paved, and then you could do a lot with directional arrows and paint that would virtually do the same thing. I think as we're, through the whole evolution, we just tried to look at things that we knew that were just going to add cost,
Sure. Appreciate
so.
that. Thank you.
And again, that keeping that area open and flowing, I think was our thought process.
Thank you.
It brings up the other thing about, again, the technologies, and some point down the road, do you have, the option for gates at different locations to have it where people could purchase, their boating passes electronically through a kiosk. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can look at down the road as far as management, that goes well beyond, some of this construction aspect that really is, where a good deal of effort, once you see how it functions, maybe you'll get a better understanding of what type of management system would help make it function even better.
That's a great point, Rick. Thinking about, forget what the exact statement was, but it was about not having enough space and so on and so forth. It might have been Cheryl during her review of losing the current extra parking. Camps get full. And when camps are full, Same with boat ramps. If there's no open parking, then there is no access to the lake at that point. Now you can say that's a horrible thing to say, but you can't have people parking on both sides of the street, as we've had, again, public testimony tell us is happening, to where people can't get in and out. I know we don't have that problem on Park Road, but the fact is that when the park or the boat ramp parking is full, if it's actually the safety hazard that we've learned it to be, then we need to say there's no more space. But that's a management issue. Are we good to move towards the next phase, which is bid?
I'm good with it.
And just so we're clear, we're bidding out this first section, what they describe as project. Where is it? Bid package number 1. That's what we're bidding out.
Where did you come up with that name?
It's on the underneath the logo on the top left.
of the project manual?
And of the engineer's estimate of probable construction costs dated 9/29/2022.
Okay. And just to be clear, Rick, that does not, if we send this out to bid as trustee Glenn potentially indicated, that does not mean we've approved the project manual.
No, we've got to go back and make some edits on those, like you'd mentioned, the cofferdam option bid alternates. So we will be revising that manual slightly. So that is not in this final version as yet.
Okay, so let me see if I can maybe help speed that along. Does everybody know what a coffer is, what a cofferdam design is? That's essentially where they put sheet piling down, de-water wherever this concrete's going to go, and they do a mono pour. It's one huge pour, could be two in this case, to provide contract and expansion joints. But it's essentially one piece of concrete. It's not individual 18-inch wide logs of concrete set in the ground.
They're walling off the area to make it dry in order to pour it.
Yes. So I'm sure it's good.
Taking big pieces of concrete and putting them in.
Right. And I'm sure it's going to be hugely more expensive. That was gooder English, by the way. But it'll be very expensive to do. And cost is already a concern of the boards. Cost versus payback is already a concern. So if the board is aware that we're going to have potentially future problems with the log design. So Rick, from a technical point of view, are today's logs, and that's my term, I apologize, I'm sure there is a technical term.
Plank.
But okay, plank. Do today's planks vary significantly from what's already in our lake? Question mark.
Not necessarily yours, but other ramps can be vastly different. Probably, I want to say, if you go back to the 60s and 70s when the DNR was doing planks, they were 1 foot wide by whatever length, 12 feet in length, and they were all hooked together with like an eye bolt configuration. So that old technology is kind of given away to the new monolithic, and the DNR they stand behind it, and that's how they install all theirs, is the wet method. And by the very sheer weight, I mean, a 4 foot wide by 18 foot by 6 inch or 5 inch thick concrete slab, they basically slide them down rails until they butt up against each other. And part of that is also, like you said, the expertise of the contractor in preparation of the subgrade. That's where it's that experience comes into play. You know, and the boat launches we worked on, they've been doing them in the wet, and they've held up, and they're very successful. But you know, like you said, the other ones, like you said, it's not only the material, as you know, Ron, it's like, who was the original installer? If they weren't experienced, it's very easy to make mistakes, as with any project. So it's not necessarily the product or the methodology. Sometimes it's that experience factor as well. Again, that's where, you know, like we mentioned earlier, the DNR, they like the wet method, but I think it's always good to see both methods, and then you can just make that evaluation call and see the numbers.
Rick, isn't it also a function of the fact that you're 4 foot wide on the planks and there's just less flex points possibilities?
Well, I don't know, flex points, it's a consistent grade, I mean, in theory. So yeah, it's a different flex points, but also it's just more stability. You know, when you think about a chair that might teeter, you've got more contact point to the ground with a 4-foot by 18-foot plank than you do a 1-foot. No, regardless on how they're hooked together, it's just a more stable platform in general. And I think the DNR learned that over time, and that's why the 4-foot by 18 has been for a decade or so the new standard.
Understood. Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
And so I guess my point for all of that conversation, Rick, unless the board members want to see a coffer design, I mean, I would be fine if we just used what's spec, and that would be the plank that is 14 but 4 by 18 by 5 or 6, whatever it says. 8. So
Yeah, I think I would be fine with the planks at this point.
it gets us off center and gets the project back on track somewhat, right?
Is it a better way, like, to the end? Does it have a longer lifespan doing it this way?
Well, see, part of this problem is, again, we were presented with all this information a year ago, has been pointed out to us. Okay, great. And what somebody drew up, and no offense, Rick, I call the first set of drawings anything. The original cartoons were provided to us to sell us on a topic. And so as time goes on and time permits us in our private lives to get better educated and about what's going on in our neighborhood and across the state with these types of designs, trying not to commit the same mistakes twice, right? That somebody else has already done. I'm not saying we get smarter, we just have a different point of view. And that's what brings us to today, Heidi, and the reason for a lot of controversy. It's not that we're trying to delay, it's that we've become higher educated and now our palate is asking for this different level. And so would it be better? I suppose if we had another 3 months to review engineering data on it, and I cannot say I've found any. And I don't think Rick has any to provide us. And that's why I'm saying I'm legit satisfied with something 4 foot wide, 18 feet long, and however thick it is, just to get the project moving. Because yeah.
So Rick, I have a question on the project manual. Doesn't that have to be supplied in the bid documents for contractors to have all of those details?
It's part and parcel of the bid documents. The plans and the contract manual go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just put out some drawings without all the other information that's in the project manual. So I think the project manual's got to be finished up and be ready to put out to the public.
So back to Ron's, so is the cofferdam option even desirable as a bid alternate or not? Is the board comfortable with the planks?
I'm good with planks. Same.
I'm good with blank.
Consensus.
That was done, by the way.
I'm okay with the planks because you don't really have another choice.
Oh, we do,
Well,
but
you
it
do,
just
but
delays getting this out to bid. And
You'd have to
as
redo
far as the
everything.
project manual, I still don't have a good answer on the differences between the first and second one. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that bait at all.
Well, then go back to the first one and make the decisions. Let's make the decisions on what should be in there. in
That's
those
fine.
yellow highlights. While we have F and V on the phone to help us understand
No,
what.
we're not gonna
Well,
go through another 257 pages documents in this meeting.
No.
The biggest,
Yellow highlights.
the biggest thing we're gonna need to get is a direction so we can set a bid window.
A bid what? Rick?
A bid window of when do you want, when the bid packages will be available and when you want to receive the bids at a set time, which I assume would be the township hall, and a set date. Normally, this type of project, we would recommend probably a 3-week bidding window. But we've seen some communities have as much as 5-week bidding window, somewhere in between.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do a 3-week just because of the contractors I'm aware of. If they're slow right now, we probably don't want them. If they're busy, they're probably not going to give rate number.
You know, we tell people the preferable time, to do anything really before November 15th is there's no advantage. Sometime in December would be the optimal time to give them to start to look at it, and with bids due in early to mid-January would be my recommendation.
That sounds reasonable to me. Board?
Yeah, I think you're gonna lose a week or so over the Christmas holiday. So I think you're gonna have to expect that it's probably mid-January, not early January.
Yeah, I say a 5-week window is, you know, if you started early December and went to the middle of January, that's a very optimal bidding window, because you are going to lose. That's the tough part is, you know, as Ron had mentioned before, 2019, you could put anything out at any time, and I think you're going to get reasonable bids. Now you've got to put it out in the downtime, sometime, you know, in January. The only reason I say, you know, to target sometime either or even late January, that way if bids come in and there has to be some evaluation on what the best course of action is to go after those bids get open, you're not right up against spring. It gives you, again, February to, you know, get contracts in place, because it does take, you know, it can take up to 30 days to really get all the insurance information, bid bond, performance bond, all that stuff in place before you actually have an executable contract.
And I'd also like to point out that to the board that it does dovetail into our budget process in terms of allocation of funds necessary. Since we'll be working on that through the first quarter, so timing might be preferred.
As far as project execution, we heard from Clerk Goss about the boat ramp first. But what about if we were looking at the parking lot first and then held off boat ramp until after the significant part of the boating season?
You're talking about scheduling, the timeline scheduling.
Yeah, and we can put those in the agreement form, that there are milestones that could separate the project into 2 distinct parts.
I think that might help address, because where the boat wash station is currently projected to be, as well as the additional parking, that's going to be minimal transgression onto the park itself, probably to a greater extent the boat ramp, but still minimal, I believe.
It sounds like a good approach.
So we have to have a bid document finalized, okay? And so I guess we've got a little bit of work to do on that.
How's that going to be accomplished?
I don't know.
Well, are we gonna have to have another meeting to go through this project manual?
I would say so. The board needs to be able to opine on the information that's in that document. Am I wrong?
No, I
First of all, am I
no,
wrong?
I agree. And
If I'm wrong,
I think it needs to line up with the package one and it needs to be accurate. I mean, it's the old saying, if the project manual and the bid package is not correct, you're gonna get garbage back. And so we have some changes to make. And I think Vincent Vanderbrink you've relatively turned things around quickly. So I think,
Yeah, I don't see that as a major time effort. I think we know the direction. I think we know that. I think what we feel is the consensus for the elements of the project. It's now getting some of those things like the milestones and the bid window dates, at least get some tentative information in there and align the bid form to align with what the discussions were with waterways, and then get that back for your review.
so thinking of a time-saving step here. Do you have recommendations on, I think having one board member, whoever it is as the main point of contact or the decision maker for a project of this scope is not desirable. Let me put it that way. And that is in no way, shape, or form a reflection on anybody's abilities. Is there a firm out there that we can hire to do this? What do you have any recommendations to help us through this that we could agree on today as the point of contact and wrap this up quickly?
Well, I'm not sure I'm understanding the nature of your question, Ron. I mean, we're contractually obligated right now to deliver this project as we just discussed to whatever point. If you want us to take it past bidding, and if you want someone else to take the construction back end, that's totally your purview.
I think I confused the situation. I'm sorry, Rick. Let's start new. Hi, I'm Ron. First time caller. I don't think we want to saddle one board member with the go-between duties, the bi-weekly meetings and all of that. I think we want to have a third party. Or maybe board. Do we do 2 members? Something less than a.
I mean, historically, we always tell a community to develop a small steering committee or somebody that wants to participate. Like you said, ideally, you don't set up a committee that's got a majority of board members to be in violation of any open meetings acts, but you could name certainly a small, I would say if you wanted to have a small 3-person committee that would be part and parcel of the whole process and participate in those meetings, that would be great.
And that's the idea I was going for, Rick. We did something similar with our marijuana subcommittee, right?
Correct.
So we had 1 member from the public. Did we have 2 board members?
Yep.
On that subcommittee?
Yep.
And then we had professional advisement from zoning.
Correct.
That's only 4 members, and I thought it was a 5-member board.
We had a member from the PC.
Oh, okay. So in this case, could we have 2 board members, a member from the public, and
member from PrAC?
Nah.
Okay.
This is at this level. This is a board decision because it's about changes, right?
It's up to you.
Well, no, it's up to the board actually. So you do have a good idea. I
I actually like-
discounted it too quickly. I'm
I
sorry.
actually like her idea because they're very familiar with our park systems.
They're not familiar with this park. Just watch their April 2022 meeting. Just watch it.
You've asked them to get more involved. What better way?
I agree, but I'm not going to throw those people to the wolves
Well,
on this
it would be a
project.
voluntary thing. It would be a voluntary thing. It's not
That's
like
from a
we're
member from the
signing.
public.
How is it any different if you're putting a member of the public in? It's not.
Because they might have a want to do it.
Understood. I just, yeah. I'm happy with board members and members of the public. If PrAC wants to advise, they certainly can, but you know, they are just an advisory committee. They are not discharged with any decisions. Board
Sure.
members are the decision makers.
Yep, but neither is a member of the public.
You're right.
So
But we might be able to get a member of the public that maybe has some engineering background and haven't had, the word goes out, maybe somebody with some marine engineering background. Any subject matter, anyone with subject matter expertise is going to be a big benefit.
that's great.
I mean, we can bring this back at a different meeting. I mean, that's where it was headed. I was just trying to get it wrapped up so Rick could.
You know, yeah, I mean, I would say if you had a small steering committee that could participate, you know, we've even had some good luck with, you know, other things like people from the county road commission or something like that, that have some experience. And then you may also be able to leverage your position on paving Park Road at the same time. Ron might be a good person to get involved.
Yes. What county do you live in?
Actually, we've had pretty good luck with different counties, about 3 or 4 different counties, but yeah, I know it's challenging. Like any committee, to get anybody involved is very challenging these days.
So could we do this? Here's another compromise. Could we agree that this is going to be the boat ramp expansion advisory subcommittee?
There you go.
And then we can determine how many people are going to be on it. At least that way, Rick could put this, I'll say quasi body in name form in his bid document, get it done today and get it out to the bidders.
Well, I don't know if that advisory committee, again, Ron, would be in the bid documents. The contract manual itself is a contract between Whitewater Township and a prospective bidder. The advisory committee, like you said, would be more of, I think, a way to, you know, keep everybody informed of changes as the project gets to construction. I don't know if they would necessarily have any standing contractually in a project manual.
Good to bring it back to a different meeting.
Any more than, you know, basically, as you know, the language already says in there about, you know, I think a community representative. So I think there's some language in there that's already probably broad enough to, you can incorporate any subcommittee, you know, as you see fit in this process. But like you said, at the end of the day, all change orders, any pay requests they're going to come back to the township board as a whole.
Yeah, that's not how the current project manual is written. And so I'm happy to bring it back. Just tell me what date you want to review it.
Okay. When's your
No, I'm sorry, Rick. I was asking the board for when they're available. My next availability is late December. I have December Board of Review. We have an election. And we have multiple other special meetings already pending. So, matter of fact, 2023 is going to be my first time to bring it back.
That's your first time to bring back a review of the project manual.
Well, if we can't agree on something here today, except for the fact that it's not going to be a single board member, we've already done that. And we've all paid the price for it.
Okay. Well, we didn't do that on the fire station project that I remember. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it just being 2 board members. And that's it, because isn't this supposed to be so that they're bringing back information to the board? They're attending meetings?
What Heidi read was from what page, Heidi?
It's the first page of the professional services agreement.
Yep. I am not a fan of giving, if the board approves $12,000 for a project, I am not in favor of any board member being able to write a PO for an upcharge.
Of $1,700.
Not at
We didn't
all.
do that on the fire station project.
And we learn.
All change orders, I brought every single change order back to the board. And they were all documented and the board approved them.
I'm sorry.
Why couldn't 2 board members be listed?
I'm saying that isn't
They
how the
bring-
project manual is currently written.
Well, then change it. That can be changed.
Yep,
That they
and I-
bring it back. That way, there's not one board member that is tasked with the full responsibility and the obligation.
Ron, what we could do is that professional services agreement, we could propose a simple amendment that would require 2 members of the board.
So that just, that doubles the problem that we experience. And what we experienced, I'm not going to go into. I'm one member of the board. So if y'all don't want to change it, y'all like it the way it is, I'm ready to call for a vote.
Well, okay, the professional services agreement is one thing. Are you wanting to change the professional services agreement? That's what Rick is asking. The project manual is a different document.
The project manual needs to be reviewed because there were changes made that were not board approved. So that's one item. The second item is in the professional services agreement. I'm sorry that the 2 have blended into one. My mistake.
Okay, then my proposal is that Fleece and Vandenbrink would bring back the project manual that they believe would serve this board, and with everything that is optional, a board choice highlighted in it, so that the board can review those items very methodically and make a choice. Or they put the 2 options. You know, you could do this, or you could do this, an either or thing. You know, much of it, I think, is just dates. I don't think it's going to take that long to review it, but whatever, we aren't going to do it today. And then the professional services agreement, that's a separate thing. And they could bring back an amendment to that too. I'm kind of speaking for them, but I presume they would go along with that.
I'm fine what I'm hearing on the project manual, but on the professional services, I feel a subcommittee should involve a member of the public on there.
But Don, I don't have a problem with that either. I just, you know, the bigger the committee gets, the harder it is to work with. That's all. Only because it just takes longer. But I don't have a problem. 2 board members and a member of the public. Is there anything wrong with that?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Cheryl? 2 board members and a member of the public will do what exactly?
It really doesn't matter because we still need to bring back.
Does
the
this
bid
apply
document.
to the PSA? That's what I'm asking. Okay,
That's a PSA question.
okay,
And we still need to bring back the bid document.
I agree with that.
So this
We're
can be
still in the
handled
same
at a different
spot.
meeting.
Time clock is ticking on this grant. I just tell everybody
But
that.
I tried to resolve it in a handful of different ways and I couldn't get there. So if you've got an idea of how to move it across the goal line, I'm all ears for the next 5 minutes.
And I'm fine with the changes that they made to, you can take that original document that's got the yellow highlights in it. You can look at what they changed it to and see if you agree or disagree with that. I
Anybody
don't
who
even
ma-
remember what the items were now. But they were just trying to help out finalizing the document. And so if you're not happy with those, I think just bring it to the board. I'm happy with it being an agenda item on 11/15. So we don't have to set a special meeting. It really shouldn't take that long. If they can provide something by then.
Somebody got to ask them if you can provide.
I mean, our goal would be to provide you something to review before November 1, so it'll give you 2 weeks before your meeting to review it.
Perfect.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if there's, other than getting it realigned with what the discussions were, waterways and some dates and some other small items, I think we can get it into your hand, and then you'll have a chance to review it. And if there are any more adjustments, then we can deal with it based on your feedback.
There can't be any more adjustments, Rick. I mean, this has got to come to a close. At some point in time, you have to tell the board that there are no more changes. And I submit to you that this is the meeting that we do that in. There are no more changes from this point forward.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I'm just giving you the opportunity to comment.
Right. No, I get it.
And also, again, if you have 2 weeks to review it, if we can share with the entire board if there are any comments that want to be addressed prior to your November 15th meeting. That way, whatever copy you have in front of you in that November 15th meeting would be one that's been vetted by everybody, and hopefully any other comments can be rectified.
I'm good with that.
I will not have the time to devote to it to be on the November 15th ballot, but
On the ballot, we voting for you?
I'm sorry, on the November 15th agenda, but I'm just one person, so.
I'm just swamped at this time of year too. I mean, I'm not an employee of the township. I have other work that's preparing budgets that is just sucks up my calendar.
Well, we shouldn't leave it open-ended as to when it's going to be reviewed. That will be, then there won't be anything. There isn't a target to shoot for. So I would look for other suggestions for meeting dates.
Rick, how about if you go ahead and attempt to provide something for the November 15th agenda, and the board can determine whether or not they've had ample time to review. If they have, great. If they haven't, fine too. Then the decision to push it on to yet another meeting can happen then.
And I think if all we have to do is review highlighted sections, which there weren't that many, highlighted little changes, then we probably won't have that much to review. It's not like we need to read the entire document again.
Well, quite frankly, I disagree.
Okay, you can disagree.
if somebody changes a highlighted document for you without your knowledge, what else have they changed in the non-highlighted 256 pages?
I'm ready for this to go out for bid. So whatever y'all decide.
So we'll see you November 15th, Rick.
Yes, and we'll make sure that we've got everybody's email address, that we get this preliminary document out to everybody's hands well in advance of November 15th.
Done?
Nothing further.
Heidi?
Board comments right now, or are we doing something else?
No.
I have one other thing
Okay.
to ask F&V about their, back on your bid package 1 document and the phase 1. So moving under that, you've got phase 2 with the with some gravel, drainage, storm sewer, riprap for the gravel parking. And then you've got the other items. My question to you is whether one or both of those additional items would be appropriate to apply for a Spark grant for.
Well, that's why we broke it down, is obviously, you know, some of the grant funding is going to be necessary to do more work in the park. Again, whether it be the Spark or whether it be the Passport grant in April, which is generally geared around smaller projects and renovation projects, which may be a good fit for your restroom building. That's, I think, was our intent, to break this down into parts that you could look at other grant funding possibilities.
Okay, well, I would just, with that information, then I would ask the board to keep in mind that maybe we want to, you know, because you've got all the information, right? I mean, it would be fairly, I mean, I know that's not under your PSA that we have with you now. That would be something else, but maybe, how would you approach that? Would you give us some kind of cost estimate for your services to apply for a Spark grant for either or both of those, or this other grant opportunity you talked about? Can you give us cost estimates on what it would cost us to have your firm actually write those grants?
We've had a couple of communities ask us about Spark grants, and I'm basically telling them, I can't tell you anything till I sat through the webinar on October 28th.
I see, okay. Maybe I can ask you that question the next time.
Because that's, again, it's a brand new program. I don't want to say anything off the cuff on how much effort by anybody's part. I highly encourage everybody, you know, members of your community, to sit through it so you have a good understanding of what's involved. Grant writing itself is, I don't think it's incredibly complex, but you've got to be able to tell your story, write the narratives, speak to really the funding initiatives that are really the highlights of the grant, is really how you start to really successfully kind of build on grant writing. So again, it's a little bit new. So I'm sorry if I'm not answering your question, Cheryl, but it's
I totally accept the answer.
To be determined. I just told our marketing guy just emailed me 2 minutes ago saying, hey, what is it for the Spark? I'm like, I'll tell you the 29th.
Okay, yeah, or maybe the 15th would be by the 15th.
That doesn't work when you're thinking about how this project is going to be administered, which phase 2 is actually becoming phase 1.
No, I'm not talking about doing either of those projects. I'm talking about just finding out from F and V what their cost would be to, and what procedure we would have to follow to actually apply for those. I'm not committing the board to applying for those. I just want to know, what would it cost for these professional grant writers to apply for those Spark grants in case, so that we have that foundational information in case we may want to go after a Spark grant for one or either of those at a future time.
I thought you were the one that brought up in phase 2.
I brought up phase 2 because that's
Okay.
one of the ones that we might want to consider applying for Spark grant money for. And then the other one also, we might want to consider applying for Spark grant money for. I'm just simply asking the engineers, and he can't answer it right now because he hasn't been to the seminar on Friday, so doesn't know the process, so therefore can't really tell us at this point what it would cost us to have them prepare the grant materials for those. That's
So
all I'm asking about.
I apologize, board. I'm confused. At the very opening of this, and Rick, maybe I misunderstood. During your summary of changes, I thought we moved from a grass parking lot to one of gravel. Did we not?
No, we moved from gravel to grass.
Oh, we went from gravel back to grass.
Yep.
Gotcha. So your phase 2 would be the gravel portion of the,
Yes.
we're gonna have parking in grass.
Reducing the cost, remember? That was part of that.
I want to know how you're gonna do that, but okay.
That's part of the scaled back plan that he explained at the beginning.
Yep, my mistake. So, yeah, I'm definitely ready to vote now. I can't imagine parking a rig on that sandy loam out there. Can't imagine that.
That's what they do in the additional parking right now. That's grass.
Yep.
And it's
Understood.
even got an inclined driveway going into it. People have no problem down there.
I want to know how they do that.
But that's really for storage, not, it's not a daily use thing.
It's a daily in and out
Is
of
it?
boats, yes. If people are in the park for a week and they're keeping their boat down there and they use their boat every day, they're taking their boat in and out of that lot every day. We do very little storage out there.
Okay.
Very little. That's in and out, cars, campers, although we don't really like campers down there because it's more for boat trailers, but that is boats on trailers, in and out of that lot all day.
And thinking about parking there, I'm certain that there's a level of compaction in that area that has been longstanding, which probably will not be commuted to the new parking area. But I suppose that's covered under densities. Somewhere on the print.
Under, yeah, it'll be covered. Any earthwork is covered in specifications in the manual and will be covered under site preparation and grading.
Okay, so we'll review the bid document manual on November 15th. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Board comments and discussion? second public comment.
Wait a minute, I have some
Oh,
comments.
I'm sorry.
Getting my eyeballs on.
What did you say?
I'm getting my eyeballs on,
Oh.
so I can see to read. I just have a couple comments. My comments are concerning projects. Again, I'm going to state directive, objective, goal, and a date. And if you don't get help doing your project and you think you can be a one-man show, go look at the dugouts. And that's all I got.
So while it's
That's all I got.
not generally thought of as a question and answer session, didn't the design of the dugouts go through PrAC?
I have no idea. I'd like
Well,
to
it
know.
went through this board.
And did we pay somebody $2,000 for those? I mean,
No.
we shouldn't really be having a discussion about this, but
We
The
paid
dugouts
no,
were
just the
done.
plans, just the plans.
Everything was approved by the board and submitted to the construction code office. And the construction code office has signed off on the permit.
Are you suggesting that we didn't do a good job during the design phase as a board?
Yes.
Okay.
What's wrong with the dugouts?
And that we should go look at them to determine what's wrong with them?
Yes.
Gotcha. So then you're 100% confident we can do a project of this scale?
No.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep. I am not confident.
Gotcha. Any other board comments or discussion? Public comment. Zoom land. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Hello, Connie Highmore. Thank you for putting your name in, by the way.
No problem. My phone doesn't have that, so when I was on earlier, I was on my phone. As everyone already knows, the track history of projects in the township have a lot of negatives. My confidence in getting this huge project started and finished in any timely manner is slim, sadly. The parks repairs of the storm damaged trails and High Prairie Park playground failed miserably. They're still not done. In comparison to the boat ramp project, the trail and playground are tiny. The infighting and finger pointing of members through social media and in the township hall is so unprofessional and definitely not easy to witness. I have high hopes that this very expensive boat ramp project will be a turning of the tide. It's the only way that it's going to get done. Please, please, please find a way to work as a team to move forward together. Each elected official is accountable to the taxpayers of Whitewater Township to complete projects in a timely manner. We, the people, are counting on you. You've got this. You can do it. I know you can. Thank you.
Hello, Denise.
Good afternoon. I would just like to reinforce what you had said earlier during the meeting about the difference in depth of the ramps between the Elk Rapids Marina and the Whitewater Township Marina. We can put in the boat easily at the Elk Rapids Marina, and it's quick and easy. And at the Whitewater Township, I don't have a truck, our SUV van is lower than a truck, and our tailpipe is underwater. And then we still have to push the boat off of the trailer quickly, so we just can get the tailpipe out of the water. I was thinking about it. I don't know if it's the depth of the ramp based upon the bottom of the water level there, the slope. I don't know what it is, but the grade is way too long. I don't know what the difference is, but it's a huge difference. So if that can be addressed, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else out in Zoom land wishing to make public comment, please raise your hand. I'll come back if you're having difficulty finding that particular function and take public comment here in the Township Hall.
Linda Slopsma. I just like to thank you all for taking the time to go through all of the details today. I know at times it was really lengthy and maybe a little difficult, but I do think that you keyed in on a lot of key issues. So I appreciate you taking the time and to get this project moved forward so that it can go out. And I would say based on all of these discussions, I've been over to the park several times and you know, things are not right there. Things have not been maintained properly and that needs to get fixed. And so I look forward to that happening. Lastly, I would like to say that I certainly hope we're done with rumor mongering about the park being closed. It is a travesty that so many people in this township and visitors to the township are buying into a vicious rumor. And that is really sad. I was a member of the Parks Committee for 3 years, and believe me, there was no discussion about closing the park. And, you know, that's just really sad because it's a real waste of time for everybody. And it also looks bad for all of you all.
Anyone else?
Sure. How you doing? My name is Pat Moyo. I'm actually a resident here.
It's what? I'm sorry.
Moyo.
Okay.
So we've after retiring from the Air Force, we moved here. We love it here. I've never been to one of these meetings before. I don't know if they always go this way, but I'm not sure how anything gets accomplished if they always go like this. And ma'am, I'm sorry. I was told not to say things unprofessionally, but you are extremely unprofessional on how you present yourself here.
I will try to do better.
So that's all I have to say.
Can you spell your last name for me, please?
M-U-O.
And the first one, I'm sorry. Pat, thank you.
Sorry, just getting the name down. I'm Ron. Yeah, anyone else? Looking real quickly back at Zoom, I see no additional hands up. And so I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Roll call when ready.
Baumut,
Yes.
Janik? Yes. Pop,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Goss, yes.
4:24